Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is January 18th, 2022. And this is the study session, and I would like to excuse Mrs. Holly Neibauer and Mrs. Clarine Arnold. Okay, board. First on the study session agenda is an update on strategic planning. I'll turn the time over to Superintendent Rick Robbins.
Thank you, President. We have Drew on the phone with us to update us. So Drew, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yep. Go ahead.
Okay. Awesome. Well, good evening, everybody. Glad to be joining you virtually here. Hope you're all well and staying safe and healthy. Is it possible for me to share my screen, or should I just do a talk track through the slides and send those to you afterwards?
Just a second, we'll check on that.
I'm going to send it through the chat just in case for whoever's manning the tech on Zoom.
Okay, Drew, go ahead and try to share screen and see what happens.
Let's give it a shot. Did anything change? Oh, I think so.
I think we see something.
Can you see that? Wonderful. Okay. So just put together a couple slides to guide through our conversation today. Couple key things I wanted to point out. First of all, just a quick step back. We've done a lot of work so far. I really wanted to take the opportunity to both celebrate that work and quantify some of the work that we've done. So hard to believe, but it was back in May of 2021 that we got this process started with our kickoff. Went through a couple steering team meetings throughout the process to kind of put guardrails and guidelines around the strategic planning process, engaged stakeholders, and then worked most recently with those planning teams to articulate what were going to be the focus areas of the strategic plan, the strategic initiatives, and the success criteria to make sure that we were making good on the promises we were making in that plan. If you were to total all of those hours up so far, not counting project team meetings, these board updates, and some behind the scenes work, we're just over 50 hours invested so far, majority of which have been in stakeholder engagement efforts back in September. So we put a lot of time in so far and still have a little ways to go. We're nearing the finish line. And I think we're at an exciting time where we've actually got a draft plan on paper, and we've really made a tremendous amount of progress in the work that we've done. Now it's just all about putting a bow on this and really finishing it up so that we have something to share with the public and actually get this work done. So something I just wanted to call out that we want to avoid, and what we've noticed that can happen with districts we've worked with in the past, is this whole idea of diminishing returns. So what you can see on the screen here is this curve where the beginning of our work, we were really the most productive. We had a lot of momentum building up. And we've kind of reached this point right now where the amount of time that we invest in this process is going to gradually decrease in terms of the total output that we're able to see. Where we don't want to get is this point of maximum yield, where our time invested is instead giving us negative returns. We're at a good spot right here where we've just kind of reached this point, and now it's just about finishing this work to make sure that we do get to that point where we can start making our strategic plan actionable. So something that we just want to make sure that we continue to consider here is, as we're continuing to involve additional voices in the process, is making sure that we avoid this pitfall of watered down or false promise of consensus. We have a lot of, and members of the project team, you've seen this slide before, way back I think in the summer, but really just want to call out something that we're going to try as external thought partners to prevent against is seeking, when making big decisions, it's common to seek feedback to inform the decision, and you should. But what we want to make sure we don't do is erode trust when feedback is shared how to incorporate it. Sorry. 1 second. Okay. Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, my audio was playing games with me. So what we, as you've heard us share many times in the past, is to really opt for this idea of safe enough to try. So as we're nearing the end of the strategic planning process, we really want to make sure that we're sharing decisions that we've determined are safe enough to try and clarifying additional opportunities where that mantra can kind of play into the process. So we certainly, again, want to continue involving voices of stakeholders throughout the district, but at the same time, we want to make sure that feedback is really being used intentionally. And then another pitfall that we're going to try to help prevent against is this idea of delayed decision making. So this process has gone on for a long period of time, and there's been a lot of decisions that we've made up until this point. What we don't want to do is to avoid kind of getting to a place where we can say we're ready to actionalize or make this plan actionable, because we don't either have enough information or the right people to decide. And we fall into this whole situation of analysis paralysis. We employ this idea, again, of this whole idea of safe enough to try by developing protocols in the steps that we're going to take that I'm going to outline in just a minute, where we are being really efficient and agile with our decision-making to create a proposal and either approve or amend that proposal to make sure that decisions are being made in a really effective way. And that pertains specifically to the additional synthesis and editing process of the draft strategic plan that we've shared so far. So getting into the information or the resources that we have at our disposal, we put together a comprehensive, I think almost 100-page document for you all that was shared at the end of December, or at end of December, I believe, that includes version 1 of the synthesized strategic plan content, which is a culmination of all of the work that both the planning teams and the steering teams have done. That also includes feedback gathered from the steering team, planning team workbooks as they were kind of developing the initial drafts of what those impact statements, strategic initiatives, and success criteria were going to be. We included stakeholder engagement data in there. That encompasses both the survey that we administered to the district, as well as focus group data, and then also details from that accreditation report. So a question that I have for you at this point, and I'll pause for just a second, is what other information, if any, do we need right now to move forward with this process? Or what do you think would be helpful to take these next steps?
Okay, board. Any thoughts on that question from Drew? About additional information that we would need? Mrs. Oakes?
Hi, Drew. I personally, I love the document that you prepared for us for December. You know, it was right before the holidays, and I know that there are still some of us who are wanting to respond in some of those I wish, I wonder questions. But other than that, I think more than anything, we just need the opportunity to work together as a board in the workshop to be able to come together and hammer some of it out. I don't know if anyone else feels differently.
Other thoughts, Mrs. Schill?
I agree with what Amanda just said, and I don't think we need any more information. I think we have plenty of information. I think we just need to make some decisions and continue to synthesize stuff.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley?
Yeah, I agree. I think there's plenty of stuff I read over again today. It encompasses a lot of things. I just sort of need a roadmap for the future, where we're going, what questions the board needs to ask, and just sort of give me an idea of the structure, what we need to do, give me some kind of idea of what has to occur from this point on. That would be helpful. You know, if the questions we need to answer, the other things that we need to do that process, I guess the future process is what I'm looking for.
Okay, and then Mrs. Nybar, who is excused this evening, sent me a couple of thoughts that she wanted me to share. She says, thank you for the recap and the second opportunity for board members to contribute to the I like, I wish, I wonder phase of collaboration. She says, I understand the point of diminishing returns with output, and at the same time know it's very valuable for board members to contribute to this process of shaping impact statements and success criteria, because we were able to watch and participate in these working groups. Once the task was to go from granular size to 5,000 foot above view, some vital elements may be lost. And then she gives an example of a working group dedicated to access for high quality learning experiences. I might know what shift that might take in the district to provide these opportunities by adjusting start times and standardized schedules. So she brings up that idea as well. But a broader impact statement might look like duplication of another working group, as post-secondary pathways is also, let's see, the intent is different between both topics, and looks forward to an in-depth discussion on the 1st of February. So it sounds like at this point, the board really wants to be able to dive into it and just for, as a board, just kind of look for any opportunities of duplication or overlap or gaps, just kind of make sure that the plan is very congruent. Any other thoughts? Okay, Drew, does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's helpful. And Steve, I think you might have looked ahead on my slides, because that's exactly where I was going. So essentially the two touch points that we have proposed that we get together with you all to walk through are what we're calling the launch workshop. And really the theme from now until the end of this process is refinement and alignment. Refining the content that we've developed so far and aligning it to what the district views as what needs to be a priority for right now, as well as the district mission, vision, and values, and making sure that that language rings true throughout the plan. So during that launch workshop, we have a couple, and that would be comprised of you all as board members, as well as the superintendent's cabinet, to review the latest version of the strategic plan as we have proposed so far. Also to start defining ownership and timelines for when we want this work to actually happen. Talk about additional opportunities for stakeholder engagement, again, because we know that that's a critical piece of a strategic plan rollout. And then also discuss how we're going to make sure that we are successful in the goals and initiatives that we set forth. From there, we will move to a project team meeting where we will synthesize what has happened with the launch workshop and put together another, hopefully, finalized version of the strategic plan content. And then that will then be presented to the board. We're setting the deadline of February 15th. That it seems like it's pretty soon, because it is. But at the same time, we recognize the need to kind of light somewhat of a fire so that we can make sure that the content is able to be put into, to get over to our designers and get into a form that can be shared really easily with the public, and that can be really accessible to members of the greater Canyons community. So we have set that deadline. If we come to a point before the 15th and we say that we need more time, we're obviously going to be flexible and responsive to your needs. But we would like to have at least the finalized content, the words that are going to be in the strategic plan, complete and ready to share by then. And just a couple reminders here. As we've gone through this process, we've used this term of responsive strategic planning. And what we are creating here is not a to-do list or set of to-do lists. It is guidance for people to make decisions. Conditions are going to change in the future, and what's not going to change is our North Star. This strategic plan, as the superintendent has shared, is our North Star. This is the direction that we want the district to go. Things are going to happen in our world and in the community that will need us to do some pivoting. And what's going to be nice about having a strategic plan is having the guardrails and the conditions to make the necessary decisions to navigate that level of ambiguity. So what we're not trying to create here in our impact statements are specific, examples of things that people need to add to their to-do lists. We're really creating the conditions for positive change and positive momentum to happen. And then the other perhaps uncomfortable call out to mention is that not everyone's going to be 100% satisfied with the strategic plan when it's complete. It's just impossible. We can't please everyone. And Steve, I think you might have mentioned when we were in our design, our planning team meetings, that if I don't want to misquote you, but if everybody's happy, then you're probably doing something wrong, something along those lines. But I think it's important for us to call this out and not let perfect be the enemy of the good, because perfect is not something we're going to be able to achieve. What we will be able to achieve is to create something that's going to, again, create the conditions for decisions to be made in the future and adapt to different situations as they come our way. So an ask that this is getting to the other question that was mentioned here, is what are the questions that we want the board to answer between now and when we get together on February 1st. And I'm going to email this slide deck out to everybody so that you have this at your easy access to this information. But 3 primary questions that I would like you to submit to me by email by Friday the 28th, so a week from this Friday. The first question is, as the strategic plan stands right now, the version that was shared in late December, what is currently missing from the plan as it currently exists? Second question is, what needs to be taken away from the plan as it currently exists? So addition and subtraction there. And then that last question is, what would it take to get this plan to an 85% satisfaction rate for you? So this is speaking to the notion that it's not going to be perfect, and you yourself might not be incredibly excited about every aspect of the plan, but if you could get to 85% satisfaction rate, if we could get everyone on the board, among the superintendent's cabinet, district leadership, if we could get everybody, 100% of people to 85% satisfaction rate, what would we need to do in order to achieve that? And by answering those questions, what we'll do is synthesize those responses and then come to you on the 1st with really some concrete next steps for how we're going to get to that place of a strategic plan that's safe enough to share with the greater community. So that's when we'll really put our nose to the grindstone, go line by line, and start chipping away at what's been created so far to reveal what the final plan is going to be. So that is the ask for you, is to submit answers to these 3 questions. And again, I'll send this out via email so you have access to them. And that is all I have in this slide deck. Happy to answer any questions or entertain any comments from the board.
Thank you, Drew. I think there probably are a few questions and comments. No? Oh, Mr. Wrigley.
So Drew, you said, can you send us an email with these questions, and so it's easier to go ahead and send it directly back to you?
Yes, you got it.
And what I'm hearing of this is this plan needs to be pretty broad. As you said, the conditions will not change. The North Star. Sometimes I think it's so what the legislature does. They put out a bill and then they have so many riders on the thing. Like need to add this bridge in and this bridge and this in. We're not going to put that in the plan, right? That'll be later on. So there's things that people want addressed. We can actually later on in the process put it in, but We're not going to put those small add-ons to this bill or whatever in your plan.
That's a good analogy. I think we don't want this strategic plan to have a bunch of Band-Aids on it when we look at it in 5 years. But what we will have are supporting documents that will outline clear strategies and tasks that individuals are going to do in order to actualize the goals that we have in the plan. So we're thinking very broad here.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's probably, if you say this type of be for 5 years, I think everybody will get the stuff addressed that they want to in this. I'm not sure everything needs to be in this plan, like the major federal bills that come out.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Mr. Millerberg and then Mrs. Schill.
Yeah, I was just wondering why we didn't have the deck of this PowerPoint presentation that's attached to our agenda so we could be better prepared for what you were going to present.
I did not think to email that in advance. I apologize, but you will have it after the meeting.
Mrs. Shield?
So Drew, I don't know if you can see us, but we're missing a couple board members. And so I actually think that would be really good if you went through this at the beginning of our February 1st meeting, because I think everyone needs to understand what you just explained to us before moving forward.
Oh, for sure. I did send it to Holly, but I didn't know that Clarine was also going to be absent. So everyone will get this, like I said, after the meeting, but I'm more than happy to walk through it on February 1st as well. I think that's a good suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else? I have one question, Drew. So this, the worksheets that have I like, I wish, I wonder for each of the main areas.
Mm-hmm.
Is that something too that you would like submitted to you in addition to those, the answers to those 3 questions? Or is that more of a worksheet for our benefit to bring with us on the 1st as part of the discussion?
So that's that is more kind of for your benefit to process the plan as it has been shared with you. These 3 questions are really a variation of that I like, I wish, I wonder. So something that, but this is more actionable for us because we know there what specific things you want to add, what specific things you want to take away, and in general, how are we going to get this to a place where you are proud of what's been created? So these questions are more important. The I like, I wish, I wonder might be just a good reflection exercise for you, but some of that I like, I wish, I wonder feedback has been incorporated in that comprehensive document that we sent out in December.
Okay, great. Any other thoughts or questions, board? No. Mr. Wrigley, what?
I'm sorry. I went through the report. I only saw one I like, I wish, I wonder in there. Was there more that I missed somewhere?
There were some pages that were a consolidation of, because the entire steering team went through that exercise. So we combined, I believe, we combined those responses on a couple different pages. Okay, if my memory serves me right.
I have learning experiences, access and opportunity, and I didn't think I saw any back in the back here. That was it. So if there was any more, attach those when your email you sent, because I only have 2 pages.
Okay, let me look into that and make sure that that's been communicated out.
I think what was in that document was what came out of the steering team. And then what we're talking about is just a blank document for the board, individual board members to put our own thoughts.
Yeah, I was just
along the same lines.
I was looking over there to see if it covered everything I wanted.
Right. So
that I'm not going to make a comment that has already been made. So that's why I wanted to find what we actually have so I could say, oh, it's already there. I don't need to add it.
Okay. Thank you. Any other thoughts or questions? Well, Drew, thank you so much for giving us this update and report and our homework assignment for the 1st. Board, I don't know about you, but I'm looking forward to that workshop. I think it will be very productive. And we will look forward to that.
We are as well.
Look forward to getting that information or these slides so that we can review them in preparation as well.
Yep, absolutely. Pleasure to be with you all as always. We will be in touch before the 1st, but looking forward to being back in Canyons on February 1st to meet with you all.
Great. Thank you. Have a great rest of the evening.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, next on the agenda is 2022 legislative update. I will turn time over to Mr. Charlie Evans, Director of External Affairs, and Susan Edwards, Public Engagement Coordinator.
Susan's not here. She is under the weather and has been for a number of days. And so she has stayed away in deference to keeping us all well. Kayla, I should have, and I will next time she's here, but Kayla Cullimore is our intern this year. She's not here. She has been here in the past, and I neglected to introduce her, and I will do that next time. In addition to being famous in her own right, Kayla is also the daughter of Senator Cullimore, and has started off and going to be a really good intern. I don't have a lot new to report, but on what we talked about last time. But we have two bills. Well, now one bill. When they read the bills onto the Senate calendar this morning, they put two bills that affect us at the very top. One was a resolution repealing the Salt Lake County's mask mandate. They substituted that bill to repeal all mask mandates statewide. And that bill passed the Senate today on a 22-5 vote, and I expect it to pass the House by a similar margin tomorrow. And because that bill, it's a resolution, I keep referring to it as a bill, but because that resolution does not require a signature of the governor, I expect the mask mandate to end effectively tomorrow. It could be as late as Wednesday. I haven't had a chance to confirm what the floor time on the House will be tomorrow, but I'm pretty sure they do have floor time, and this will probably be considered then. The second bill was circled, and I would expect a substitute bill sometime tomorrow. I just got a text. Let me see if that's Susan saying that I've done something wrong. No. And that is a bill dealing with the test to stay legislation that they passed last year and repealing that and replacing it. It is Senate Bill 113. I believe I sent a copy of that bill to all of you guys today. As soon as that became public, I expect a substitute bill for that tomorrow. I had hoped to talk to Senator Weiler, who was a sponsor of the bill today, before coming down here, but I couldn't do that. Susan and I both talked to Senator Cullimore, who's helping us get some amendments in that bill to make it a little bit easier for us to deal with. And so because I haven't talked to Senator Weiler yet, I hope to later tonight. I don't know that I can answer all of your questions about what he is planning to do. I can talk about what's in the current bill and what I think he may be doing, and I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. Board questions? Mr. Wrigley?
Thank you. A question on this mask mandate one, because I know people will be asking us this question. So the county originally had the authority to do that, the county council. That was overturned by this bill.
It would be if it passes.
If it passes, it will be overturned by the bill. There was nothing in this that authorized school boards to overturn the legislature's overturning of the county bill. Is that correct?
No, the prohibition on us requiring masks is still in effect.
Yeah, so that reverts back to what the original law is. Because I know there's a lot of people that are asking us to basically defy the state legislature in the county, and though we may personally want to do that legally, that's something that has not been authorized to the boards in regards to any bills. Is that correct?
Right. And in fact, if we had put a mask mandate on the way this resolution is worded now, this resolution would have repealed that as well.
So it's pretty broad. So it covers everything. Okay. I just wanted to clarify that, because I know we have a lot of people sending us, and I sympathize with them. I understand where they're coming from, but
if you look at
the board under statute does not have that authority to do that.
Right. And if you look at the substitute bill, there was language added that was a catch-all, or, basically, I don't have it right in front of me, but it says something to the effect, or any other mask mandate in effect anywhere else in the state. And that would have caught us or anybody else.
Okay. Thank you.
You bet.
Mrs. Schill?
Charlie, would you explain the SB 113, the other bill that you just talked about? Like what you think? Yeah. Explain what's in it now, because we don't know, I guess, what could change tomorrow. But.
Thank you. this I expect to change significantly, but what I think Mrs. Nybauer texted me today about the questions that she had about this bill as it related to the statement that was made by the governor, the president, and the speaker last week. And that statement was an admission that the test to stay protocol that they had adopted and put into statute in the 2021 session was not adequate for the Omicron situation they're dealing with, and the lack of testing supplies, nor in their opinion, I hope it's obvious. I'm trying to choose my words carefully. But nor in their opinion did the data back up the law the way it was. And again, I'm relaying to you their opinions, not my own, although I'm not saying they're not my own, but I'm relaying to you what their opinions are. I don't want to be branded with this. And so, well, the fact of the matter is, as we all know, they didn't have the testing supplies to do the test to stay. And in their opinion, based on the data and science that they are looking at, they didn't need it anyway. And so this is a bill that would eliminate test to stay. What I expect to be in the substitute bill, which I have not seen in this current bill, and I will admit to not being able to sit it down. I have read it all, but I haven't sat down and read the whole thing in its entirety, which is not a good idea. You know, I need to read the whole thing in one sitting to really understand it, which I haven't had a chance to do. But I think that what the new bill will do is eliminate any testing to be required for any student at any time.
Mr. Milleberg.
So Charlie, if test to stay is gone, is the 2% rule gone as well? Can we have?
I believe what they're attempting to do, Mont, is to move to a system more like what they do for flu, where they only track hospitalizations and deaths.
If you're sick, don't come in.
Yes, that is my understanding of what they're trying to do.
So, you know, I looked at the numbers that we received this last week from Alta High School. I was surprised that they only had like 1,300, almost 1,400 kids tested in a school that's got what, 2,300. And, you know, we're right around the 400 student mark, which is way beyond the 2%. Are our schools just becoming a giant petri dish to breed COVID or what?
I don't know that I'm.
You don't want to answer that question. I don't blame you.
I will say I have a son that goes there, and I have not had any qualms about sending him. But
so there's basically no limit on the number of students that can have COVID in a school.
That is possibility of this. Yes, is my understanding. Let me say it that way. Yes.
So,
and, you know, that was the case we had before we did the test to stay there too, because, you know, my understanding is that, you know, there was 300 kids that showed up there thinking they were fine and tested positive. So those kids had gone to school there the day before as well.
So we will have no mask mandate and we will have no limit on the number of kids that can be in school with COVID. So it kind of becomes a free for all.
I don't want to speak definitively on either of those last 2 points that you made. That's my understanding.
Okay.
But I'm not certain that that is going to be the case. The first point I do think is correct.
So, can I?
Oh, yes,
ahead.
Mrs. Schill.
Sorry. So are they changing the whole dashboard thing? I feel like the whole dashboard has to change then, but I guess that's the health department. I mean, I think it does say in the bill something about changing that 14 days, right? I mean, it does say
Yes.
something about that.
Yes. Right. And I don't know exactly how the dashboard will change. No one's asked me for my opinion, but if I was in charge, I don't think we should do a dashboard. I think we should just point everybody toward the county dashboard, but that's a decision for you guys to make or somebody else. Because, they just don't, it's impossible to keep them synced up at this point. And when people check both, it makes it look like, and they usually will think that the county's data is correct and that we're somehow behind, or we somehow haven't updated ours, or we're somehow not doing what we're supposed to do, when none of those things are true.
Mrs. Oaks.
So I have some specific questions regarding what it says about remote learning and the requirement for it to be synchronous.
Mm-hmm.
While I am a big fan of synchronous learning, and I've talked a lot about it in this boardroom, Amber's back there nodding her head, I recognize it also has its limitations, particularly in elementary schools. So I'm curious as to whether or not they have sought out or are receiving feedback from schools or educators at all on that.
We're working with them right now with Senator Cullimore, who's been very helpful. I want to thank him for that publicly here, to allow that the online education to be either synchronous or asynchronous. And I am going slow here because I have not had a chance to speak myself to Senator Weiler about it. Senator Weiler is the bill sponsor, but having talked to Senator Cullimore about it, I think that they will accept our amendment. I'm not sure of that either. I will hopefully know more later this evening, but we working with Amber, we developed some language which we shared with them, and I think it makes a lot of sense. And and Senator Weiler is a sensible person, so I expect him to accept it.
Thank you. That's helpful to know.
Mr. Wrigley.
Yeah, with the previous versions of COVID, the county pretty much had control of the testing because it went through the county. Now they've been talking about putting out home tests it just sort of shoots that whole thing. You will not know the number. So keeping all these graphs and everything and you may be twice as much as that. So I don't know if they're addressing that at all. Maybe that's why they're getting rid of some of these numbers. Because it doesn't
that is part of the reason.
It doesn't make any sense.
Yes, that is part of the reason. My understanding. That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to give us and then we're also having a lot of people just not going. I mean, they talked about that on KSL this morning, that they're worried about tracking other people and then giving up their friends and other stuff. So, I mean, it's been sort of an interesting process. So it'll be interesting to see what the final bill looks like.
So while we were talking here, I just looked it up, and I think we need to be careful that at this point it's not totally doing away with test to stay. I don't want to give that impression, but it's just saying that unless the Department of Health, the governor, president of the Senate, Speaker of the House, and state superintendent of public instruction jointly determine that a variant of COVID-19 currently affecting the public education system is of a type that testing and isolation under a test to stay program would be effective in mitigating.
What line are you reading there?
121 to 126.
Okay.
So it sounds like they're leaving it in place if it's something that is determined to be helpful, but they're admitting at this point that at least with the current variant that it's probably not effective.
Yeah, I mean, they're taking it out of the hands of the county health departments, and I guess the state health department too, from that language.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, effectively, test to stay isn't really a tool in our toolbox at this time. But I think that, in the future, it could be brought back, I guess is what I'm saying.
And I never have been sure it's a term that I'm not familiar with when they say had to jointly agree. I don't know exactly what that means, whether it's a bare majority of them or all of them together. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Oh, how the first day can just be.
Well, they telegraphed this to us whenever they sent that statement last week, and I expected this to happen today. I did expect to see a draft of it before it showed up on the board, but that's not the way it happened.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments or thoughts on that? One thing that just a reminder to the board that there will be a daily tracker sent so we can track the various bills, and that if any members of the public wish to sign up to also receive that tracker, they may do so.
I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Jeff has just let me know that the Salt Lake County Health Department dashboard has already reset to 0 all the Salt Lake districts. So we're at.
Speaking of dashboards, huh?
I don't know exactly what that means to say that there are 0 tests for COVID, but we're at 0.
Okay. So, well, we will look forward to another update in
So
a couple of weeks.
I would expect Senator Weiler's bill to get unsuckered and substituted tomorrow and to pass over to the House and to pass on Thursday. I'm day off because of MLK yesterday. And I expect the mask mandate to be ended tomorrow, probably after during morning floor time in the House.
Mm-hmm. And that's effective upon passage by 2/3 majority of each house.
Right. Well, I think this resolution doesn't require 2/3, but I don't think they're going to have trouble getting it.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we look forward to an update again in a couple of weeks in our next meeting. And
you bet. And I just want to
thanks for all your
reiterate,
work.
Please feel free to contact me or Susan, either by text or by phone. We're happy to talk about any of this stuff at any time that we can. I heard from Amber today, and that was very helpful. Thank you for your time today, Amber.
Great. Thank you. And please extend our appreciation to Susan and Kayla and the team.
We'll do it.
All right. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda is construction update for Glacier Hills, Peruvian Park, and Union Middle. I will turn time over to Mr. Leon Wilcox, Business Administrator.
Thank you, President Tingy. Nothing like following up a mask mandate with a construction update. So, and somewhat the news is somewhat also convoluted here as we talk about these projects that we have underway. Want to just briefly talk about the 3 projects that we started last spring. So we've been going about 8 or 9 months on these, Peruvian Park, Glacier Hills, and Union Middle. I'm going to start with the one that we're really struggling with first, and that is Peruvian Park. We've had some major problems with lots of materials to go into the building, but the main one is steel. And we just haven't been able to get the steel. We've got a lot of the steel on site. A lot of it's been put together, but we're still missing some steel. We do expect it all be here within the next few weeks. That being said, we can almost say right now that the school will not be ready. The new building will not be ready when school starts next year. We are looking at a date of about September 30th. When we met last week, that date was September 16th. But that being said, we still may slide back another week or two. That's why I put September 30th on this presentation right here. That's 5 weeks after the start of school. I mean, this is 7 weeks after the start of school. So With that being said, next school year, of course, they're down at the Crescent View building. Next school year, they're going to need to start the school year still down there until we can get the building completed. Should follow the same procedures they're in now with the same classroom, same organization that time, same start times, same end times. The busing transportation routes will continue to flow as they have been right now. When that building is finished, we do intend to move the students back. We're not going to wait for a long weekend or a long, fall break. If I guess it always could go to fall break, but we're not going to wait for a long weekend. We're going to try to get them in there as soon as possible. That being said, we'll also need likely a virtual learning day for the staff where the kids stay home and learn virtually and the staff can set up their classroom. This shouldn't be too problematic moving them back because all the furniture will still, we moved all the furniture down there, but they'll have new furniture in the new building, but it's all the teacher materials and supplies that we'll need to move back. So that's where we're at with that. Right now, we feel like we've got everything ordered and we don't see any other significant issues requiring these materials that is going forward, whether it be sheetrock or tile and the other items needed. We're still within our budget there. We've used some of the contingency, but not as much as we have on other projects. We'll be bringing the furniture to your approval at one of our upcoming board meetings in February, either the 1st or 15th. We're working on that now. And we'll just continue to update you and the school community on the construction progress. The ribbon cutting we'll announce at a later date when we feel like we're ready to do that. So there's where we're at with Peruvian Park. I know there has been some rumors at the school about where we're at with this, but we want to make sure that's public now. That right now, really, there's just no way we will be ready by school. I think it starts on August 15th. That building will be ready by then. We do hope within 5 to 7 weeks after that date that it will be, but right now that's our best hope scenario right now. So we're moving on. And here's a couple pictures here. The picture on the left is the lunch multi-purpose room. Obviously, at this time, we would like to see steel beams and a roof on that. And we just don't have it right now because we just don't have the steel. But on the classroom hall, this is on the east wing there. There's a couple wings. We do have we do have the steel up there. So as soon as we get it in, our steel erectors get it in installed, but it's just getting the materials there. So that's how it looks. If you looked at, again, Peruvian Park is based after the Mid-Valley model. We really liked Mid-Valley. So we put that same exact design there. But if you looked at Mid-Valley in January of 2020 and Peruvian Park at January of 2022, you would see a big difference where the construction is. And it's essentially caused by steel, but what you can't do anything until we get that up installed there. So that being said, I want to acknowledge Leslie, our fantastic principal there. She's been at all the construction meetings. She's been working with her staff. Again, a thank you to her and her students. They've been, I think, doing well at the Crescent View building this year, and of course, the last few months of last school year. But again, we really apologize and really want to get them in as quickly as they can. They've been great to work with, and really want to bring this to a new building to that school community. But it's still going to be a great building. It's just going to be a few weeks later than we thought. We'll move on to Glacier Hills. We have a little bit of better news there as far as the time right now, and that's as of today, and it changes all the time. But right now, we do believe we will have that building. We are on schedule to have that building completed in time for when school starts next fall. That being said, with this Omicron rearing its head, we still may come into labor shortages and material shortages, and so that could push the start of that building back. Again, we're still struggling with lots of things. Last week, all our roofers They had lunch a couple of weeks ago, all our roofers, there's about 10 of them, had lunch in 2 trucks. One in each had Omicron and spread it to everyone. So they were all out last week. So those are the problems we're dealing with at all 3 projects right now. But due to steel prices that have really increased since our bid date, and to get this one on schedule, we do need to increase the contingency budget on this one. So we do have a purchasing bid out there for you to review. It's for $555,000 there. Again, these prices are just to keep the contractors on site and working. We have to try to work with them the best they can, as these prices have just really inflated over the last several months. Again, we'll also be bringing you the furniture and equipment in the next couple meetings in February. We'll continue to update you and the community on the construction of this building. We've tentatively have the ribbon cutting set for one of those 3 dates, right? I'm not sure we've settled on one, but that's the week before school starts. And also keep in mind, we're building that youth academy there. That will not be done until about a year from now, next December, January. So we can't open up the regular school without the academy. But again, that wing of it will not be done until then. Here's a couple pictures of Glacier Hills. On my right is the lunch multipurpose room. You can see we do have a roof on there. We do have the steel beams going across there, and that's of course where we want to be, where we wish we were with Peruvian Park. And you can see a lot more steel there. This is on the east. This is east facing west. That cement pad there is the Youth Academy pad, and where the steel starts, that's the end of the regular building. So we need to complete everything from that steel west, but you can see all the steel that we do have on site. We're making, they are making good progress there. Like I say, as of right now, we do expect to be in there come the start of the next school year, which would be important because we're combining the 2 schools there. The last one we have is just Union Middle. I didn't put any pictures as you drive by. I think you can get a good view on 7th East there of the progress on Union Middle. Of course, that one will not be done. It's not scheduled to be done until August of 2023. We do think we're on schedule for that. I guess we're not late enough in the year to be behind yet, so to speak, if you will. But again, a year and a half out, we do feel like we're in good shape there. Again, just a reminder, the parking lot and the site will not be completed till about 2 years from now, as we got to knock down the old building and put the playground, the new soccer field and the parking lot in there. We have used quite a bit of the contingency, more than we wanted to as of right now. The issue is, again, just inflated steel and mainly electrical prices on this building too. So trying to get these has really been a challenge this far, keeping these 3 buildings going. I'm glad we're started in when we have, several other districts are just doing groundbreakings for schools that passed bonds for recently, but I'm glad we're where we're at, but has been a struggle there. But again, a big thank you to Elsina, the principal at Edgemont, for all her leadership down with that school at Crescent View, as well as Julie Renfrey. She's done a great job of gearing up for next school year with Glacier Hills, and Kelly Tadioli and her staff there at Union. So with that, be happy to answer any questions.
Questions, Mr. Millerberg?
As I drive past Union Middle, which I do quite often, it seems like the walls are going up and it looks like it's moving along well. But I don't see any steel trusses on the, a roof starting at all. Is that because they're not to that point in construction, or is that because there's not steel available? Yes, in both cases.
Probably yes in both. They're doing the tilt up, so they're not to that point. With a lot of those are tilt up walls there, so they're not quite to that point there.
I drive by there and I just keep thinking those guys have got to be freezing their butts off out there. It is so cold.
It's they have a way of staying warm though. if you go walk on site, these guys do a great job, and both men and women, they've kind of figured out how to tuck in the corners and build little windshields and get the work done. But yeah, it is cold there in the morning. Yeah. Any other questions? Just so you know, did you have a question, Steve?
Mr. Wrigley.
Yeah, just a question. Based upon our experience with Hillcrest and seats didn't come in for months because we're on boats, are we going to be ordering the furniture pretty soon and maybe storing it if we have to before?
Right now, like I say, we hope to you'll have to approve the furniture. It's going to be around 600,000 at each school.
Mhm.
Right now we've been told it's a 12 to 16 week out on getting furniture delivered. We're going to plan on these 16, but if we have it ordered by beginning of February or in February, that means we should have it by June. It may not be ready to be installed, but our manufacturers can hold it for.
Do we have any space to store that? I mean, the
Again,
price is going up as fast as they are.
Yeah.
If we're going to buy them soon.
Our manufacturer will store it for us. We will not have them deliver it on site until we're ready, but we want to make sure.
Okay, so it sounds like we'll order it as soon as possible, and then they'll wait rather than, because my thinking is that the prices are going to go up within 4 or 5
They've gone
months.
up. They've gone up dramatically. Just in the last 2 years when we bought furniture for Mid Valley, the same style of desks gone up dramatically since that last 2 years. Hillcrest and Bright were different because it's bigger desks.
You may want to buy extra and sell it to those other school districts and make a profit.
If we could find out how to do that with steel, we'd probably do that. Yeah.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Mrs. Neibauer did send me a couple of questions that she had just about the relation between the contingency money that's budgeted and the percent of construction completion. I believe she's probably just asking if it's correlated at all, or if it is the contingency money is.
Yeah, there's really not a
How it's-
correlation
how it's
there.
used.
Again, contingency, we have a contract, and then we have what we call a contingency, so the 4% on top of that we've set aside for unforeseen events, or in case we need to add something on as we go along the construction progress. And so there's not necessarily a correlation. We've gone through it a lot faster than we have expected to at this point, though. And really, all 3 projects, even Peruvian Park, haven't used as much, but we're used more than we thought we would at this point. And that's just because prices have inflated on us substantially. Yeah.
And in regards to the extra contingency fund for Glacier Hills, that will just be added onto the overall budget of the project.
Yes.
And I guess my question is, in the future, like you said, we're kind of dealing with inflation and increased costs. And if any additional contingency monies are needed, then they would also be added to the general overall budget of that particular project.
Yes. And we've, if you've in the past, you've done that quite a bit for Brighton and some for Hillcrest too. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Thank you. Other questions it's kind of amazing that these 3 projects are underway, and we're grateful for you and the facilities team that are coordinating with all of the contractors and architects on this. And I thought of one other question I had for you about construction update. If Glacier Hills really is going to be finished on time, then that will open up the Bellevue building, right? And I know there's been some talk about needing some time to get that ready for a future use. What timetable are we looking at with
Yeah,
that?
it's a good question. That's why it's so imperative. Well, not, I guess nothing's impossible. We work around, we got miracle workers here with our principals, and they can work around all kinds of issues. But when Glacier Hills is done, the end of this fall, we intend to just empty out all the stuff out of Bellevue. And then what stuff they will be taking will over to Glacier Hills will store here for them. Most of the stuff will not, because that's mainly desk equipment, which they'll be getting all new. We'll then go in and start doing some renovations for Diamond Ridge. We plan to do that over 2 summers. We just need to get enough to get them up and going with some counseling centers, a sick room, renovate the restrooms, for the larger students. And I think that's all we'll do this summer. The next summer, we'll be doing some science labs and some FACS classrooms for them as well. So, and then maybe be something in the summer of 2024 as well, as we get out there. So it's going to be about a 2 to 3 year process to get that building renovated up for Diamond Ridge. So it's a domino effect. Then we can move Diamond Ridge over and look at some things at CTech as well in the future. So.
Great, thank you. I think it's pretty incredible what this district's been able to accomplish in regards to our buildings. So I guess that concludes, unless there's any other questions for Mr. Wilcox.
Just, as Leslie is here, she'll be letting her staff and community know about this. We wanted to update, we know there's rumors out there now, but we wanted to update you first, and then she'll start letting her community know. So parents, teachers can start making plans for next school year, the first, again, we hope it's only 5 to 7 weeks.
And you'll keep us posted.
We'll keep you posted. Okay. If any of you have any free time and are still workers, please come join us for an afternoon.
Well, I don't think we came through when you invited us to show our tile laying skills. So I don't know.
If you have any other skills, we'll try them out. That's still an option too. You can drive a bus in the morning and afternoon and do some. We'll see.
Okay, thank you. And thank you, Principal Jukes, for being here with us. And thanks for all you're doing to make this school year as successful as possible for the students there at Peruvian Park. So, all right. Thank you. Okay, board, that concludes our items on study session. We will take a short break and reconvene for the business meeting at 7:00 p.m. Good evening. Good evening. I think we're ready to begin. I'd like to welcome everyone to the meeting of the Canyons Board of Education. Today is January 18th, 2022. We are meeting in a business meeting, and we're meeting at the district office located at 9361 South, 300 East in Sandy, Utah. I would like to excuse Mrs. Holly Neibauer and Mrs. Clarine Arnold from the meeting this evening. And like to welcome all of those that have joined us in person, as well as viewing the proceedings of the meeting through the live stream. The first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. I will ask for a motion to do that.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda for January 18th, 2022 as so written.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. We will now be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Peruvian Park Elementary Principal Leslie Jukes. And then Principal Jukes will give us some highlights from Peruvian Park Elementary.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to thank the board for the opportunity to speak to you today and tell you a little bit about Peruvian Park. I already written my comments, and as our discussion has gone tonight, they're going to be appropriate for another time next year as well. In December, I received a communication from the communications department that U.S. News and World Report had named Peruvian Park one of the top 3 elementary schools in the state. Now, my first reaction was, how on earth did that happen with all the crazy stuff that went on last year? Many schools throughout the state were dealing with the pandemic and all that that entailed with changes. But in addition to those challenges, our school weathered major disruptions as we moved locations in the middle of the year. This included dismantling classrooms, packing bins that were scattered throughout the school, all while teachers kept teaching and students kept learning. The answer to the question, how did this all happen? Well, I think it was easy to figure that out. It was our school community that banded together and decided we were going to do this, and we we're going to do it in a way that was best for our children. The parents at our school rallied around us. They rearranged their schedules to account for new buses. Remember, many of our students had never ridden a bus before. They also changed their driving schedules. We had over 120 students who still decided to come down to the other end of the valley, and their parents drove them. So they adjusted morning and afternoon to still bring their children to our schools. Also along the way, they volunteered to help us with all the fun activities that we were doing and getting the students ready for the transition. And they put a very positive spin on this to their children. They told them that this was going to be okay and that you are going to be okay. And the children showed that every day. Their patience and support for us and the changes that we were making provided us the opportunity to still focus on children and learning. And then our teachers managed to do the impossible. The entire staff pitched in with them. They always kept their eyes on the most important task, making sure students were nurtured emotionally while their daily routines and rooms were disrupted, and they provided top-notch instruction throughout. As more and more materials were moved into the Crescent View building, teachers taught out of what we lovingly called their March box. That was where they had to plan ahead because many of their things had already been moved down at the end of February. So they planned for the entire month of March, put everything in a box, and taught out of that box for the entire month of March. Many of them were also doing this while suffering the side effects of their vaccinations, and they kept on plugging along. Our support staff was everywhere, planning, packing, and moving to take the pressure off of the teachers. And our office staff and custodians went above and beyond, organizing and even at times having our secretary and custodian out there moving furniture to get it to the movers faster. Teachers spent so much time just watching and listening to the children so they could guide them and assure them. All hands were on deck to provide the students the smoothest possible transition. But our most important and most shining examples of perseverance and resilience were the children. Their worlds were rocked for a couple of months, but they persisted with determination in their classrooms that were changing all around them, materials that were disappearing to other locations, and routines that looked a little different. Yet they still focused on their goal getters, and they accomplished those goals. They participated in their morning meetings and took care of each other. They jumped in with both feet and participated in the farewell activities, some of them even drawing bullseyes on the school so the wrecking ball would know where to hit. As we moved into the other building, their resilience was even more evident. When Mrs. Peck and I walked around the school at 10 a.m. on the first day in our new building, classes were running just like nothing had ever changed. One little guy in Mr. Beck's class was the epitome of resilience. As he walked into his new classroom, he was doing a little jig and announced, "This is so cool." So now that we have had that successful year, there's no doubt anymore what happened. It was the entire Peruvian Park School community that band together. So I'd like to think of this designation for U.S. News and World Report, not as recognition of school scores, but as a celebration of the school community. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you sharing that with us. And yeah, Peruvian Park really has gone above and beyond in a very trying circumstance. So we congratulate you and thank you and your staff. Please extend our appreciation to your staff and the students and everything. It's pretty exciting. Hopefully the new building, as we talked about earlier, will come online, but maybe not right at the beginning of the school year, but we're looking forward to good things.
We're well practiced. So
yes.
Thank you.
Lots of resilience growing there. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, next on the agenda are recognitions, and we'll turn time over to Jeff Haney and Kirsten Stewart from the Communications Department.
President Tingy, thank you for this time to recognize the achievements of students, faculty, and staff in the Canyon School District. Tonight, for our recognitions, we are honoring the best of the best, and they are found in our own backyard. Now, those who are mentioned tonight will receive a letter of recognition from the board and the superintendent. And our first honorees are the students, faculty, and staff of the Canyons District Schools that earn top rankings from U.S. News and World Report, as Mrs. Jukes has so eloquently talked about tonight. You can see there that panther in the middle of the slide. That's from Peruvian Park. Now we also have the Sunrise Eagles and the Draper Park Vikings schools that have hit the rankings for the U.S. News and World Report. Now the rankings are a part of a national effort that ranked more than 61,000 schools across the country, mostly using performance on state tests as a measure. Now, this also is a comprehensive ranking on school size, student to teacher ratios, and other important data about school achievement. Sunrise, where 86% of students scored at or above the proficient level for math and 85% for reading, was ranked number 1 in the state. Peruvian Park ended up at number 3 with 82% of students scoring at or above the proficient level for math and 78% for reading. Draper Park, among all Utah middle schools, is at number 4 with 73% of students scoring at or above the proficient level for math and 69% for reading. So congratulations to the principals, the faculty, the staff, and the students at those 3 Canyons District schools for their achievements for ranking in the top 5 as listed by the U.S. News and World Report. Now, our next honoree joins a prestigious club of Canyons District educators who have been honored by the Utah Association of Secondary School Principals as Principals or Assistant Principals of the Year. Now, we're cheering for Mindy Robison, the principal of Midvale Middle School, for being selected the Utah Middle School Principal of the Year. And Mindy is known for her positive attitude, her can-do demeanor, and her innovative approaches to major challenges at her school. Now, this includes an initiative as supported by the Board of Education to increase achievement among Midvale Middle students. As we well know, Midvale Middle's student body is quite diverse, the vast majority of whom come from families that face socioeconomic challenges. Ms. Robison requested and was granted by the Board of Education additional funding to reduce class sizes and provide after-school programming several days a week. And we have found that it has worked at her school. Even during the COVID-19 year, Midvale Middle students did not experience a slide in math achievement and actually notched an uptick in reading skill attainment. Now, more students are attending their classes, fewer students are being referred to the principal office for disciplinary measures, and with the extra educators, multilingual learners receive more support, and math class sizes are smaller as well. Now, Mindy was informed about the news that she's the Utah Middle School Principal of the Year at a faculty meeting recently at her school. This faculty meeting was attended by President Tingy, Mr. Millerberg, Superintendent Robbins, and Cindy Hansen, a school performance director. And her faculty, Mindy says, kind of perplexed her a bit because they kept asking the craziest questions, and they were basically waylaying the announcement till all of us could arrive. And Mindy kept saying, God, why are they doing this in front of the superintendent? They're just asking the stupidest questions. But it was a big surprise to Mindy. We were so proud of her. Congratulations to Mindy Robison, the Utah Middle School Principal of the Year. This extends a streak for Canyon School District for having our educators named as the top administrators in the state. Previous winners include 2021 Utah High School Principal of the Year, Dr. Brian McGill, 2020 Middle School Principal of the Year, Paula Logan, 2018 Assistant Principal of the Year, Sandy Lecheminant, 2016 High School Principal of the Year, Mary Bailey, 2014 Assistant Principal of the Year, Doug Hallenbeck, 2013 Middle School Principal of the Year, Mary Anderson, and 2011 Assistant Principal of the Year, the late Dr. Paul Kirby. Congratulations to Ms. Mindy Robison. She will receive the award later this month at the Midwinter Conference of the UASSP. And also, all of our schools certainly will have a lot of nominations to sort through when they select their Teachers of the Year. Nearly 650 nominations have come in so far this year in the nomination process to pick the 2022 Teacher of the Year. The community has until February 4th to submit those nominations. By tradition, every Canyons District school is invited to select one Teacher of the Year. Those school-based selections are announced the week of March 28th. Now, from that field of 50, we winnow it down to 3 finalists: a Teacher of the Year for the elementary level, a Teacher of the Year for the middle school level, and a Teacher of the Year for the high school level. And from those 3, we select one overall Teacher of the Year to represent Canyons in the state and hopefully National Teacher of the Year competition. And also, the dancers in our district are preparing for their final bows and kicks and twists and splits. Best of luck to the drill teams of Canyons District High School. January 29th will be the 5A and 6A state tournament quarterfinals, and February 2nd and the 3rd are the state championships for our drill teams. We wish the best of luck to the Alta LaSalle's, Brighton Acadians, Corner Canyon Shirelles, Jordan Charlonians, and the Hillcrest drill team. If you've never had the opportunity to see our drill teams in action, I would encourage you to tune in and see the live streams of the competitions. I think that you will be amazed at their athleticism and artistry. Also, the Canyons Education Foundation is proud to co-sponsor a CSD Teacher of the Year program, and the foundation is sponsoring a fun run later this month. Don't forget to sign up for the fun run on 2/2/22 or 2/22/22. Anytime between those dates, the 2nd and the 22nd of February, you're invited to jog for 2.2 miles or go for a 22-minute walk, as long as you get the job done between those 2 dates. Now, the whole point of the 2.2 run is to get some exercise, have some fun, celebrate the seasons. Let's cross our fingers for good weather, and to also support our teachers. The funding goes straight back into Canyons District classrooms. We support our teachers in many ways. The foundation is one of the major supporters of Canyons District teachers, and we thank them and the board of the foundation for their support of Canyons District students and teachers. So, President Tingy, thank you so much for this opportunity that you grant us during board meeting to recognize the students, faculty, and staff of Canyons District.
Thank you, Mr. Haney. So question on the 2.2 run, are tutus optional?
For you,
I see the
President
picture.
Tingy, I will require a tutu if you decide to jog the 2.2 miles. Now, honestly, I told Denise that I would be willing to don my tutu for the 2/2/22 race to benefit Canyons District teachers. So pull out your cell phones, you get video and photos of me running those 2.2 miles in my tutu.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Okay, we have now come to the patron comment portion of our meeting. While not required by law, the board often designates time in meetings to listen to the patrons of the district. In observance of the board adopted remote learning day today, the board will hear from patrons via telephone only. Please be aware that patron comment time is limited to residents. Oh, thank you, Cindy. I will start over when the line is open.
Now unmuted.
Thank you. We've now come to the patron comment portion of our meeting. While not required by law, the board often designates time in meetings to listen to the patrons of the district. In observance of the board adopted remote learning day today, the board will hear from patrons via telephone only. Please be aware that patron comment time is limited to residents and taxpayers of Canyons District, students and parents of students, and current employees of the district. Patrons may provide board members with written documents. These documents must be emailed to the Office of Public Communications at communications@canyonsdistrict.org by noon of the day following the board meeting. Time allotted for public comment is at the discretion of the board president. Tonight, we have one individual that signed up to address the board, and that person will be given 3 minutes. It's the board's practice to listen and take notes during patron comments. The Board of Education does not discuss matters that are not on the meeting's agenda, nor engage in public comment on individual students to protect their privacy or employee issues. If a patron wants to comment on a district employee's character, professional competence, or mental or physical health, the board requests that those comments be submitted to the board in writing. However, if the patron determines to verbally comment on those personnel issues, the comments need to be civil and refrain from personal attacks, insults, defamatory, or slanderous comments about an individual. The Board of Education would like to make it clear that critical race theory is not part of their curriculum being used by Canyon School District. There are no plans to incorporate it into the curriculum or instruction in Canyon schools. The Board of Education values input on all sides of issues. To maintain decorum and respect, we ask that those in attendance refrain from applause or other types of demonstrations during the patron comment time, as well as throughout the meeting. So this evening, Jenny Mazzaro has signed up to address the board. Are you there, Jenny?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So my name is Jenny Nazzaro. I have 2 elementary age children in the Canyon School District. I'm very concerned about the spread of COVID-19 that's been happening in our schools and community, and I'm worried about keeping schools safe and functional, as well as the strain this has created on our hospitals. I'm very grateful Canyons made the decision to have today as a remote learning day, but a long weekend, I fear, is not long enough to break this surge. There were over 8,400 cases of COVID-19 in school-age children over the weekend. This number is likely much higher due to the availability of at-home tests that are not counted, the stoppage of test-to-stay programs, picking up asymptomatic individuals, and the difficulty getting a testing appointment at testing sites recently. With a shortage of staff and large absences of students and the ramifications of spread in our community, I ask that you extend remote learning in Canyon schools through the next week or as long as needed to get through this current surge. I encourage you to take advantage of the ability to rotate to remote learning set forth by the governor and the legislature. If we sacrifice in-person learning a little longer, we will avoid further exponential spread and school closures. I also ask that for you to continue to post school COVID case numbers on the dashboard, despite test-to-stay events being put on hold. This information is very important to us as parents and helps us make decisions about sending our kids to school. I really appreciate all that you're doing to keep our kids safe and keep our schools open. I encourage you to please continue to do everything in your power to slow the spread of this disease by following CDC guidelines, including supporting any mask requirements, spacing students out, postponing assemblies, doing enhanced cleaning and air filtration, and requiring sick children and staff to stay home. In addition to these measures, please consider continuing remote learning until this current COVID-19 surge has passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes our patron comments for this evening. And next on the agenda is the consent items. So I will ask for a motion, and in making that motion, please list each of the items on the consent agenda.
I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, which includes item A, approval of minutes for January 4th, 2022. Item B, approval of minutes for January 11th, 2022. Item C, approval of hire and termination reports. Item D, approval of purchasing bids. Item E, approval of student overnight travel. Item F, approval of December financial reports. And item G, approval of Alta View Cell Tower.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next on the agenda is item 7A, COVID-19 update. I will turn the time over to Superintendent Robbins.
Yay. Well, thank you, President Tini. After listening to Jeff, I really don't want to share this part of the meeting, but and I just want to say congratulations to those schools that were highlighted. That's pretty awesome. Not only did those three were in the top 5, but I think we had another 10 or 15 that were in the top 20. So it just is another great reflection of the hard work and everything that goes on in our schools, each day, even in the midst of a pandemic and a crisis, that the focus is still on the kids and achievement and what they're doing. So I think that's pretty awesome. So I appreciate Principal Jukes sharing that with us tonight, and want to congratulate her and her staff as well. So as part of the COVID update, obviously a lot is happening. We heard Charlie debrief us on what's currently happening in the legislature, so that will likely have some impact. But I wanted to share just some numbers on kind of currently where we're at, and then take some questions and moving forward. So first off, today, as mentioned, the county has already reset all of the school districts' dashboards. So I think it's important to understand that obviously does not mean or reflect that there are no cases in our schools. There are. And as of this morning in Canyon School District, we had 1,202 student cases. Of those, by weekend, had the dashboard stayed current, 500 of those cases would be coming off. So I'm cautiously optimistic that that is a little bit of a downturn. I'm by no means saying that we're at a crest, but that is a positive sign in some ways. On the other side of that, looking, as we've talked about before, looking at the 14-day cycle, as well as the 5-day, and in our elementary schools, over the last 5 days, we've increased by 173 cases. In our middle schools, 159, and our high schools, 173. So at the high school level, again, that's a little bit of a downturn. At the middle school and the elementary, that will more than surpass the 14-day total if it stays on that same trend line. One question about, just to answer up front about the dashboard. I can't explain exactly why the reset occurred. The closest thing that it can be aligned to is CDC guidance. But my understanding from county health is that it will remain on a 14-day cycle that is aligned to the incubation period and not aligned to quarantine or isolation. So going forward, if the dashboard remains, that's how it is calculated. And that's problematic, as we know, because we're allowing students and employees to return at 5 days. So, and without test to stay and that being suspended, it does make it very tricky in how we're able to accurately demonstrate numbers in our schools. On the employee side of things, heading into this morning through the holiday break, we had 162 employees that were positive over the last 14 days. Within like the last 3 hours of before board meeting occurred, that upticked another 47 employees, taking us to 209. And with that, of that 209, 95 of those are teachers, 74 up until this morning, and then an additional 21 teachers were added this afternoon. Over that time, though, interestingly, beginning last week, by this Thursday, 131 of those employees are scheduled to return to work. So on the positive side, the vast majority are coming back, but obviously we're still picking up positive cases. Last Friday, the district held an additional booster clinic, and 457 employees received their booster shot. We did have 200 plus employees not show for their booster, but that did raise our booster rate from 36% to 43% in the district on booster shots. And remember, we're still over 80% of our employees are above or have the first 2 vaccinations. So, so thinking about kind of from where we left off this discussion last time, I think, one of the concerns, obviously the number of cases, but having said that, Omicron and the spread is much different. And I think we have to look at it a little bit different than we did in the past with Delta variant. As I mentioned last time in that report, hospitalizations and deaths are much lower than the last time at this point. Doesn't mean it's any less serious, but I think that's something to consider. When I look at the total distribution of cases across the district, it's relatively low in each school with staff being out. So yes, there's 209 staff, but when it's spread out across the district, the highest number right now is at Corner Canyon High School at 11. even with today. And then that falls off to Jordan High at 9. And from there, it's just a scattering of 5, 4, 3, all the way down to 1 across the district. So are we at a breaking point? I would consider no. Are we getting closer to that tipping point where we would look at critical mass and the ability to staff our schools? We know, last week we had the situation at Jordan Valley where we did reach that, where we had 14 staff out at the same time. And so I would recommend that we continue to use our targeted approach that we have from the beginning. And I think that's really the best approach to mitigate and still ensure that our kids are able to attend in-person instruction. And let me just say this about that. Over the weekend, I had some long conversations with Dr. Webb about this very issue. Just as a reminder to the public, Brandon Webb is the IHC chair over COVID for their COVID council. And we've relied on him from the start, and he's not led us astray to this point. And I really trust his judgment. And it comes down once again to this balance between trying to ensure that our students' academic and overall wellness needs are met, and at the same time ensuring safety in this environment. And I certainly don't wish these decisions on anyone. They're not easy, and I appreciate all the feedback and the emails from patrons and the public and parents, about what they consider as best practice. There's really not a playbook that I can just pull from behind the chair and say, yeah, this is exactly what to do, because Omicron is much different, as we know, than Delta, and there's likely to be others. So I respect greatly everyone's opinions, but in his mind, and looking at our data, the number of cases coming off, the severity of the situation, that trying to thread the needle and maintain in-person instruction, balancing that with the 5-day break that we took, along with the intervals with the Fridays, which in his calculation, he felt like that could potentially give us up to 60% more protection, that we stay the course. Now, having said that, obviously, if we get a run on employees or things change where we can't staff, then it may be a situation where we would potentially move a school to remote learning. But I think at this point that would also take board approval to if we move a school to remote. So we'll be watching that closely. So for the time being, what I would recommend we move to is that we move with the spread, and this was also under advisement from Dr. Webb, is to move our district to Tier 3 status. Earlier today, we had 15 more schools reach Tier 3, so we're pretty much there across the district as it is. But a few highlights with that moving to Tier 3, and I think most people and parents in the district are familiar. You may have received our Tier 3 vigilance letter and what that actually means. But just a couple of things to add to that. One is one of the greatest weapons we have to fight this is, and this is also according to Dr. Webb, if you're symptomatic, please stay home for those 5 days. It's very, very important that if you're experiencing those, to stay home. We'll also continue with our testing clinic as test supplies are available. BJ informs me today that we are receiving another 4,000 test kits soon. So I think we'll be able to continue that, but we are advising that you only test if you're symptomatic. So we'll continue with that. We'll also, if possible, we'll try to survey our employees to see what kind of continued interest there is in boosters. And I think, one data set with that's important to mention is, and this is a little bit different from Delta, is out of the 162 positive cases as of this morning, 85% of those were breakthrough. 29 of those were those with a booster. So 21% of those positives were breakthrough with booster, and then another 25 of those individuals not vaccinated. So Omicron is acting a little different than what we've seen in the past. Its transmissibility across, all of those populations is high. So that, I think that's something else to kind of support our strategies. Considering where it's at, I would recommend that we stay in tier 3 at least through the weekend, and then circle back to this on Monday. We'll continue to monitor the data closely. This thing, as you know, is almost changing by the hour, and we also have legislation that's changing. So I think to try to project something out, more than a week would probably be a little premature in the environment that we're in. I think, we stay as close to the vest as we can and respond accordingly as needed. But it's not perfect. I realize that. I know it, no matter what we do, it will come under criticism. I get that. But I think keeping our schools open the very best that we can that's the commitment and promise that we made from the start, and the board set that direction forward, and we'll continue to try to do that. So questions?
Board. Thank you, Superintendent, for that update. Questions, board? Mr. Millerberg and then Mr. Wrigley.
This may be a little back and forth, okay? I understand that teachers get ill. I get it. I know bus drivers get ill, food service workers get ill. And I think we all know that remote, and I hate to even use the word learning in this sentence because I don't believe that there's a lot happening for learning remotely. We all know that remote learning is not as good as face-to-face classroom instruction. Yet we have continued to add more and more remote learning days. I certainly understand today being a remote learning day because we were trying to get a reset for our schools. And kind of the part that I don't really understand is what remote learning looks like. I've talked to a few people. I had one constituent tell me today that her son spends less than 10 minutes on a remote learning day receiving actual instruction over the computer. Amber told me today that her son spent 5 hours doing homework. Homework is not instruction. That's somebody's printed off worksheets or some made an assignment that can be done absent a teacher's instruction. I guess what I'm really looking for is, first, what is expected on a remote learning day from teachers and students? Second, I'm sure that what's expected is not what's happening. And so I'd like to know what is happening. And I'd also like to know, once I get those two questions answered, who is holding whom responsible for what's going on? Is there anything happening in the district that spells out expectations and says somebody is accountable? Because I'd kind of like to know what's happening on these remote learning days. Since the district was formed or created, we've always said that it's about the students and what's best for the students. And I don't know that if we don't have somebody being held accountable, that that is what is best for our students. And I'll go back to what I said at the last meeting with the remote days that we put in. It was sort of because we talked about it would reduce, I think your word, Superintendent, were it would reduce their exposure by 20%. And I still maintain that students and adults still get exposed at places other than schools. We have said now for the last 2 years, as we have diligently strived to clean our buildings, have air filters, tried to do everything we possibly could, that our schools have been the safest place that our students could be. And yet we want to push them into the unsafe places on those remote learning days. I'm just kind of baffled on this, and I don't know that any of it's making sense to me.
No.
Hopefully my questions are making sense to you.
No, it's all good. I'm trying to just keep them in order. Well, let me say first, backing up to your first question, ultimately I'm responsible, and you should hold me accountable to that. And
so how's that working out for?
Well, I agree. There's pockets of good and bad, and we can definitely, I don't have any excuses for that. The quality assurance line of communication has come through school performance and ISD, mostly in my mind, principals holding their teachers accountable to that. And that's where I've focused my attention. But having said that, obviously, there's breakdowns in that, and I'm accountable to that. So I'm not passing the buck to anybody else. We got to change that culture. It can't be this idea that, because there are expectations. I've seen them. Amber can email them all to you so you can look at them. But our teachers should, at minimum, engage the kids for 2 hours on that day. And it sounds like to me, in some of these situations, that flat out is just not happening. So I'm not making any excuses. That lies with me, and I'll take that.
I can show you where 6 of my grandkids were today.
I know that's I don't have an excuse for that. It's not what I expect or want. I think, when you look at, when we talked about this last time about the absenteeism that's happening and the continued weight of the crisis and the feedback that I get, that's the best that I can put forward that addresses and balances both, right? Because teachers are, at least I would say, the majority, and there are some that obviously are not following through, but especially in our elementary schools, to try and teach in a dual role where kids are on Canvas and they're in person and they're moving back and forth and missing school, and really without, compulsory education laws to enforce that, it puts us in a very precarious spot. So that's that, but I will address it.
And, I don't want to be misunderstood. I'm not slamming our education professionals at all. I believe we have some of the best.
Yeah, I do too.
In the state, if not in the entire nation, teaching in our schools. But I'm just feeling a lack of accountability because I have no idea what's really happening. And I would like to have somebody be able to tell me that our fantastic teachers, this is what they're doing and this is the success they're having. But I'm not getting any of that.
No, I will come back in February in the next COVID update and have a better handle for you and be able to address that in a way, more comprehensive way. So good and bad. I mean, I'm not going to try to sugarcoat anything that's not there, but I'll have a better picture for you in February. What was your last question? Sorry.
Part of the question in there was whether or not this is what's actually best for our kids. I think the final question / statement was Are our schools considered one of the safest places that kids can be?
So on this question with Omicron, I used to believe what you said. Like I believed our schools were the safest place, and I still believe they're very safe. But I also recognize the challenge Omicron presents. And talking with Dr. Webb about it, his comment was it can spread 10 to 15 times faster than any other variant that we've ever seen. And he said, to him, his opinion was that between encouraging or supporting masks and staying home if you're symptomatic right now to weather the storm and the surge, that, that's probably our best bet. But he also was very cognizant and supportive of the fact that in Canyons, we have really tried to thread the needle and keep our kids in school. The other 3 of the county districts in Salt Lake have all gone remote for over 10 plus days. And, the damage that also causes, while it may address some issues at some level, we know from last year about this time, it was in December when we were moving schools back and forth, the whiplash effect that caused was almost as detrimental as anything that we did. So I'm slow to pull that, trigger. I recognize the impact that has, but I also can see, just the sheer numbers that Omicron it's moving through our schools at a rapid pace.
Yeah, this whole thing just feels like a bucket of smoke to me. It keeps moving, it's drifting, and you can't really get a grip on it. And like I said, I don't want to be overly critical, but there's nothing I would love more than to come back and say, this is what our amazing teachers have been doing. These are, we feel like our kids are receiving the curriculum that they should be receiving, and it's very effective. But right now, I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing anything as to what's really happening.
Okay. No, that's a fair criticism, and I'll be prepared to address that.
Thank you. Mr. Wrigley.
I got to get a breath of air first. Thank you. You mentioned earlier some action that the state legislature has taken. We talked about that in our study session, but I know our meetings are riveting, but not everybody attends the study session. Maybe we want to just quickly go over what's going on in the legislature, because we get a lot of letters either way on mask.
Yeah.
And a lot of times the assumptions on mask is that the school board chooses to or not choose unmask. And oftentimes we're asked to do stuff that legally we cannot do, despite what the board feels. I mean, and I understand parents and we want to support our parents, but sometimes we cannot do certain things, even if they choose to tell us we have to. So from what I understand, earlier today, the Senate passed a resolution, and now it's going to the House.
Correct.
And by tomorrow morning, that resolution will overturn the mask mandate for Salt Lake County.
For the entire state.
For the entire state.
Correct.
And part of that mandate is that, if the county can be overturned, definitely a school board can be overturned. But that's part of the language is also that no entity can overturn.
So just to back up a couple of things there, Steve, to address. One is in statute from last spring, school boards were not ever allowed the authority to mandate masks. So I think that's important for everyone to understand. Where the mandate came through is through the county health director. And in that statute, it had a way for the county health director to issue a mask mandate with support of the executive, which is the mayor, and the county council, which county council did not overturn it. So it went into effect. But there's also a piece in that legislation that allows the legislature under a resolution to also overturn a mandate without the signature of the governor. And that is currently where that's at. It's not occurred yet, but as Charlie said, it's likely to happen tomorrow morning.
By tomorrow.
And once that occurs, my understanding is it goes into effect immediately.
Immediately. And I understand there's also a bill that seems to be moving forward in regards to test to stay, because I know that was one of our other options we had against this was test to stay, but it looks like Omicron's moving so fast that the test to stay doesn't make any sense. Once you do it, 2 days later, the numbers could be crazy.
And that was supported too in my conversations with Dr. Webb. His comment is that it's moving at such a rate that the threshold set out by test to stay will never keep up with that. So we do need to look at this in a different manner, and kind of, I think we have to change our mindset about how we maybe looked at Delta variant and test to stay versus Omicron and test to stay, and just the sheer fact that personnel shortage and supply shortage is also part of that equation. So
the other thing is, I've had some parents say they would like us to go online. There's a limitation of what the legislature will allow. What's the new things that are maybe coming?
So this is tentative, I believe, in the bill. That again, bill, not law, not.
They're moving fast though. By tomorrow, maybe
moving fast, but who knows, right? Is that to move remote, it would require Senate President, House Speaker, Governor, State Superintendent, and the board, I believe, or the board would submit like some type of application. Is that what you understand, Nancy?
That's how the language is now. Yes, in the bill.
So
that to go remote at all, or go remote more than 2 weeks?
School or LEA. So if it was an individual school, you would have to submit. I envision it as we would make application, those 4 sign off, and then the board would approve it.
So if we have a school get too high now to close that school and move it on to online, we'd have to go through the legislature if that bill passes.
Correct.
Okay. So that's going to sort of restrict what we can do, I guess, a little bit also.
Yeah.
The other thing is I've had several teachers concerned how do I put this? I guess some of the teachers are feeling that the parents are not concerned about their welfare. We're trying to figure out what they can do. We're going to a tier 3, and maybe you can define what that is. You've brought it a couple of times up. I don't know if our public knows what a tier 3 intervention is.
So if you, over the last year in this year's plan, we designed it in tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 mitigation intervention strategies. And each level is more restrictive than before. So for example, stay home if you're symptomatic. We would also cancel or postpone assemblies. Remember, one of the main ways that Omicron is transmissible is by congregation and mixing, right? So while we can't or want to stop it across the board because of our students' academic and overall wellness, we can do some things to help slow that down. So field trips, dances, assemblies, any time that the students gather like that, we would cancel or postpone that for a future date. We would also restrict and limit volunteers in the building. We've done that before as a strategy. That's been effective to slow it down. And then we would also cohort our students. So for example, in a lot of our elementaries, they might have in a grade level band students mixing in reading groups, right? They're regrouped to read together. What this would put in place is they would stay in the same class with the same students throughout the day. And we know that cohorting can be also an effective measure. We're doing the very best we can. We're short-staffed on custodial staff, but we'll continue to try to maintain our buildings. My understanding is Omicron's even more airborne than Delta.
Than the measles, from what I understand.
Right. So I don't know at what level, but I think one thing that it does go a little bit underrepresented is we're still utilizing MERV 13 filters, and my understanding is that will stop it. So along with, and I don't know where we're at on this, Leon, but ramping up our airflow back to occupied the best that we can, that moves the air through the building throughout the day more than usual. So there are still tools at our dispense that we can utilize to try to slow this thing down
So we're doing about as much as we possibly can.
and encourage masks. That's
Yeah.
another part of tier 3.
We have been sending out vigilant letters to parents, basically asking for their help and support in this process to help keep schools open. I mean, that's what they want. They want the schools open. We've been asking for help. In that case, what the two things have been asking for is, if the numbers go up, to be sure to keep your kid at home. If you think sometimes you got it before you even know, which is a problem, but to keep your kids at home. And the second one is, we're not forcing anybody to wear a mask, but we're asking, if at all possible, that especially during this time, we may want to wear a mask for a short period of time, because if we don't have the staff in the school will not stay open. I mean, that's one of the few things that we have. I know the teachers have been concerned of the spread, and especially if you put out a vigilant warning and the mask number go down, that sends a letter to the message to the teachers that I may not be valued. So, I mean, those are the things I guess we could ask right now of the parents is, and I hate these stupid things. I mean, I don't like to wear them at all.
Likewise.
I think if you do wear them, they're saying get some medical grade ones, because the cloth ones don't do a thing with anything anymore.
So we're well stocked in NK 95s. I think, Leon, another 40,000. Is that so?
We got several thousand in the warehouse, and each school has a large inventory.
So we've got some really good quality masks for parents that if you have to wear them, that we can. Now the children's could be issued because we don't have the children's mask.
And if there's
we have 40,000 children's KN95 masks.
The children's ones. So we have some masks. These have been shown to do some good in that process. But I guess that's what we're asking of the parents right now. I mean, my hope at the very beginning is, I don't like forcing people to do anything, but we have very few options at this point in trying to educate. I've heard from teachers saying that remote learning, there's some questions that Mont had in regards to that side, but kids don't open their even contact sometime and get onto Canvas or anything. We're just not getting the response. It's a free day off in some cases. So to go remote learning, we lose control of the student's education. I hope parents understand we're trying to do the best we can in some extremely difficult situations. I mean, one day we're told one thing, the next day it changes. We just have to work as a community, like Peruvian was saying. We really need to work as a community and try to figure out how we could overcome this together. And hopefully we'll be able to keep our schools open, keep our kids' education solid, and keep it from sliding like it has in the past. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else we can do. Maybe a little patience with us, but our hands are really limited with the legislature and their mandates over the last couple of years. I mean,
well, just to add to that too. So we did, like I mentioned, we did receive 4,000 more tests. So I'm confident that we can keep our testing clinic open. That's been positive. I would just encourage the public and employees and parents that if you come, that just, we're recommending that it's only those that are symptomatic. So we're trying to keep those in reserve, the best that we can for those that need it. But yeah, Steve, you're right. Like I keep trying to, in my mind, I mean, and I hope everyone understands, like, I'm not making these decisions in a vacuum. I mean, I look at this data nonstop throughout the day, on the hour, to try to understand where this is all going and what's happening. But I'm like you, I am 100% committed to keeping our schools open. That's what we started with. That was the board's direction from the beginning. We know what that benefit means. But at the same time, this environment changes so often. I totally recognize, our teachers and staff's fears and trepidation. It's real. It's a real thing. And, so we're addressing it the best that we can with the information and tools we have.
I think more than even keeping the schools open, we have 100% we want our kids to be safe.
Yeah.
So not only open, but safe. And we know how we do that combination. I mean, it got last week where we had 35 bus drivers off one day. We have over 90 people in our cafeterias out. We can't serve food. We couldn't get the kids to school. We didn't have enough substitutes. We have staff going in from the district office to replace people. We really need the support of the public right now to try to help us, support us in doing this. And without that help, we're going to even makes our job even harder. So again, I don't want to encourage anybody, anything, or take anybody's rights away from, but we really do need to work as a team to try to figure out how we're going to keep kids safe and keep our teachers safe and our staff safe. Otherwise, we won't be able to accomplish our goals. We have to do as a team. That's more than enough tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Oakes and then Mrs. Schill. And I just want to take a minute and recognize Representative Suzanne Harrison is here with us. And we appreciate your being here. And especially on first day, it's nice of you to be here with us. Mrs. Oakes and then Mrs. Schill.
So I want to echo a lot of Steve's sentiments. First of all, I want to just give a shout out to the teachers. I can't even imagine the stress and pressure that you have been under in the midst of going on the second year of this sort of thing. And just when you think it's certain and you know how to figure out lesson plans, then everything is thrown up and scattered and you have to figure out how to land on your feet all over again. A lot of that's happening in the midst of them being sick or having half their classroom sick. I just want to commend all of you and thank you for the hard work that you're doing. It is incredibly difficult. And I echo Steve's sentiments about the importance of us working together as a community. Superintendent, I appreciate you keeping in close contact with Dr. Webb. And to me, his reasoning behind keeping the 4-day school week makes sense, especially with the reduction in risk by 60%. And doing that and also trying to make sure our kids have points of contact regularly with their teachers. I do have questions with regard to the Tier 3 status. I've been contacted by some individuals who are concerned about the fact that the exceptions that we make with Tier 3 gatherings are USHAA activities only, which leaves out other groups that have been anxiously working to be able to do certain things, whether it's robotics competitions or PTSA sponsored activities or field trips that have already been previously paid for. I personally would like to be able to see that expanded a bit so that it feels a little discriminatory to me, I'll be honest, that it's so focused on athletes rather than incorporating a lot of different groups that, you know, they might not be athletes per se, but I think the same principles may apply.
So let me be inclusive in that too. UHSA would include drama, speech and debate, choir, music. So not just athletes. And I know we had a few middle school plays that were scheduled in the current county health order. Those were allowed to go forward. So I don't see any reason to change that. I think some of them were actually this week. And it essentially just said, if you're a performer, don't wear a mask, or you don't have to wear a mask if you're in the stands. You're observing that you should wear a mask. So those things that are during the day, yeah, I'm open to that feedback. I mean, I think, you know, this is an age-old question, right? The very first night that we presented way back when we first started, this very topic came up, and you know, I don't pretend to try to have the answers. UHSA has essentially been silent on the issue from the start and really left it to districts. And it's really, for me, it's been about just that balance of trying to balance wellness with safety. And I get there's going to be probably some lines drawn that cause casualties both ways. And, you know, I don't think we completely eliminate the threat of the virus. At the same time, I'm open to that direction. If the board would like to expand it, I'm good with that.
I'm just curious as to whether or not it's logistically possible to allow for, a case by case like evaluation for some of those schools to be able to come to you and say, we have this event coming up. They've had these types of preparations. I mean, I would think actually in many cases, some of those events would have fewer people at them than like a high school basketball game.
So remember, I'm only recommending through Friday or this weekend. So it's, my thought, especially how this thing is changing by the minute, to go beyond that would not be wise on our part to, go past that. But yeah, I think in the short term, if that's the direction that you want me to take, I'm okay with evaluating those, because we're just going to go through the weekend and then let's see where we land, on Monday.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill?
So Steve actually asked a lot of the questions that I was going to ask. So I do have one, though. I have gotten some emails from teachers asking us, why don't we do what those other 3 districts did? Like, why don't we decide tonight to have the rest of the week off? So I'm just wondering if you would address, and you may have to just repeat what you've already said, but.
So I really struggled with that, Amber. When other districts in the county made that decision, to be quite honest, was a little bit taken back by it. When I look at our data and I see how it's distributed over the entire district, especially with our employees, at this point with our students, as mentioned, it's very hard. I think, in our mind, we're kind of locked into the threshold system that we were under, but we just can't view it that same way as we have before. It's different. And so I think when I look at that in totality, the balance and the weight of, and this was the conversation with Dr. Webb, is, obviously if we have a run where it gets to critical mass in a school like we had at Jordan Valley, we just don't have a choice. There's not enough staff to serve. And Steve, made that point well. That's one issue. Outside of that, in his mind and his counsel, is that if we can thread the needle, if we can ramp up tier 3 to a place that can slow it down, and we run that along with shorter intervals that give us that extra layer of protection, that we might just be able to pull this off and keep school open. But I'm hedging my bet. I could be wrong. If it continues to spiral and increases the way it does, I'm maybe back asking to do just that. And it sounds like if this bill passes, that there'd be a process to that. But I fully recognize what our teachers are facing, and I just hope they'll trust in the process. We've been doing this now for 2 years, and I think one difference, I don't know, I don't follow the other districts that close, but I do know that, we've been very methodical in how we've utilized each tier in response and when. And up to this point, again, it's a different situation, but getting to tier 3, if you go back, a few months, when we had some of our elementaries start to really close in on those numbers and we instituted tier 3 mitigation strategies, it came down, so we were able to, really hold it off. So for me, moving to remote, definitely all things are on the table. But at this point, when I look at all of the data in front of us, I would recommend that we stay the course with tier 3. Let's try it. Let's see what if we can slow it down. And then if need be, if we have to come back and it's not, and we have a staffing situation or the numbers continue to spiral out of control, then let's see what this 5-day break, brings us. Hopefully it will disrupt it enough to slow it down. Tomorrow will be a good indicator. We'll see what it looks like in the morning.
Okay, so you will just be monitoring the cases every day and just see how several times a day. Okay, I know all along our board has wanted the kids to be in person. We know it's way better, just like Mont was saying. The remote days we know they're not as effective, nearly as effective as being in person. So, okay, I have two other questions. Number one is, do you think, and maybe this is for the board too, like, should we still do the dashboard? I don't know. Just a question. And then my second one is, if that bill passes, there's synchronous learning required in there. So what's the plan for that?
Well,
So those are my two questions.
so take that step at a time. I do have my own concerns about the dashboard. I just, after my meeting this morning, and Nancy was on the call, I'm feeling less confident in how accurate the dashboard actually is. I had some serious concerns coming into the weekend, and now kind of understanding where this is all going. I worry that people see it and their mindset instantly, even though we're fully disclosing that it may not be an accurate reflection of how many cases are actually in the school that day. It's just not, because we're allowing students back at 5 days. So there's no way for us to really, pinpoint that accuracy. So,
well, because even now with the county resetting everything to zero today, does that mean our dashboard is going to go to
it
zero
goes to
today?
zero. It already has.
Because we follow them.
All of them have gone to zero.
Okay, so now we're starting over in the next 3 days.
On the dashboard.
On the
But
dashboard,
that
yes.
does not mean, as of this morning, we had 1,202 cases in the positive cases in the district over the last 14 days. So, if you follow the 14-day incubation period, there are cases, many cases in the district.
Yeah. Okay. And then what about the
what was
synchronous learning?
I think we just need to be patient there. I think, right now, everybody's kind of rushing to what they see. And I think, we just let that play out in the legislature, and then we'll be prepared to respond to it. But as you know, likely there will be multiple substitutes, and who knows, if it gets circled, or, a million things can happen and it can change. And I hate to make any comment that sets off a wave of, like, this is now what's going to happen, when it's really premature.
Yeah. And that's, and it is for the remote learning days. So, and yeah. Okay. That's fine. Just, we should just be aware
We'll
of
watch
it.
it. Yeah, absolutely. And we'll be ready. Whatever comes from it, and when it's signed into law, we'll address it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Wrigley?
I have just one question to add to it. The 14-day was based on Delta and all the other variants. The current variant's talking about 5 days. I'm wondering, because I've had parents say, I look at your dashboard to determine if I'm going to keep my kid at home, because I'm concerned, especially if there is no mask mandate, I want to know where that is. And maybe we just need to put down a 5-day thing, so it doesn't have to correlate with the counties. Let the county do 14. We may put down the counties, but this is our 5-day count. So parents could know what the numbers are within the school as far as the current requirements on 5 days, and they can make that decision. Because I've had several parents say, well, especially if there's no mask mandate, I want to know how many of those kids are out. And if that's too high, I'm going to keep my child home, even though they don't have COVID. And that does empower those parents to do something to protect their child.
No, I recognize that, Steve. I think a couple of things, with that comment, is we rely on the county to report to us, right? So it's really them telling us these are the verified positive counts. We get many people, parents and, grandparents, family will call in and say, hey, I'm pretty sure now with home test kits, people not feeling well, it's kind of the Wild West when it comes to actually, reporting and contact tracing. And so it's getting more and more difficult. But to the parent that called in, like I recognize that we get hundreds, if not thousands of hits daily, on our website. I just worry that if the information isn't accurate, how good is it if we're not even certain based on the information we're getting that it's on the money.
So theoretically, that may be impossible, especially with
Well,
the new home kits and
yeah.
everything else that
yeah.
they're doing. But I just know, I was just trying to figure out a way for those parents that are watching some of those
I
numbers
agree.
and making a decision whether or not they send their child
Well,
to school.
I'll take it back to cabinet and we'll try to put our brains
Yeah,
to it.
they don't, I don't think they care about the district. They just want to know this school, my kid, send him or
How
not.
many cases? Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Millerberg?
Could you maybe go through the rules for me again? Because I've heard so many things about 5 days and what is
Me too.
it's all just muddled up in my mind because I've heard that you have to have 5 days plus a negative test.
No.
And they request that you wear a mask for
Correct.
5 days.
Yes.
So tell me what the rules really are.
Okay. So it's been a few weeks now. The county changed guidance on this. So again, originally, if you tested positive, you were isolated for 10 days. And at day 7, if you tested positive, you're out 10 days. If you were exposed, you were out 10 days, but you could you could do a rapid antigen test at 7 and come back. Okay. So that was the original guidance. Then
that used to be stuff.
Then the CDC changed guidance, and there was a lot of discussion and dispute about what that meant. Many people were saying, this was purely economic at the time. If you remember a few weeks back, the airline industry was massive numbers of people missing work, medical, health, education. So I don't know for sure where that lies on exactly why that came about. To Steve's point, there was some discussion about Omicron and its incubation period being less. I'm not trying to say that was the case. That's just some things that I read. But it did change guidance to us from the county that at 5 days, if you tested positive, you were to isolate for 5 days, but then at 5 days, you could return to work or come back to school, and with the recommendation to wear a mask for 5 more days to complete that 10-day isolation period, but you could come back to school.
But the mask is just
a recommendation. Correct. Yeah. So, and that's where we just have not been able to track that. We in the beginning, we thought about.
So there is no test required after 5 days.
No.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's currently where it's at. And it really makes the dashboard problematic that way, because we know there's kids in our schools and employees that come back sooner that, still may be shedding virus. So, and even today, late this afternoon, I texted Mary Hill at County Health, and I just said, "Okay, for clarification, is resetting the dashboard a signal that you are going to start dropping cases and change that cycle to 5 days to reflect that going forward?" And she said, "No, we're staying with the 14-day cycle." So that's what I know.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? I just want to thank you, Superintendent, and thank you, Board, for all your questions. I'd like to go back just a little bit on the remote days, and thank you for being willing to come back to the board with more information about those days. And I just, while I don't think any of us think they're perfect or as well utilized as we'd hope, I would like to say I think it's a whole lot better than it was in March of 2020.
Yeah.
For what's happening with the connections at school and between school and students and homes. And I think part of the answer to making those days more effective, because they're a tool, in my mind, a last resort tool. Well, next to the last resort tool, I guess, as opposed to going completely online for an extended period of time. But as we look forward, I think, we just need to keep improving and getting better because it is a tool that we have obviously had to implement and hopefully, I mean, even for, what do we call them? Not the days that used to be known as snow days, right? I mean, it's something that down the road, but I feel like part of it too is helping parents understand how to use those days best.
Agreed.
And so
we can do better.
And hopefully, as was said, if we all work together, we can get through this. We can, we will, and we must. So thank you. And please tell your staff, I know many of them aren't here because we tried to keep numbers in the room a little bit smaller because of what we're trying to do with our schools, but please let them know how much we appreciate their work.
I will.
It's
Very much so. I
tireless
appreciate that.
effort that they give. So
one point of clarification. So would you
Yes.
like me to evaluate? So we put this in place for the rest of the week. If we have any of those field trips or anything that's between now and Friday, if it goes forward, if we still are in this situation on Monday, then we would go forward with that. But would the board, would you be supportive of me evaluating each of those as they come?
yeah.
Yes, I
Everyone okay
am
with that?
supportive of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think one question to ask is how difficult would it be to postpone and reschedule?
Right.
Some
That's
events
always the
are,
first thing I
that's
ask.
easy,
Yeah.
but others
If it's
it's
an
not.
easy reschedule, then please. But if it's something that they've had planned and it can be rescheduled and the risk is low, I'm fine with that. I don't ever want to try to draw a line in the sand that, is taking away, but we're just in this unfortunate space again. So
I think I
is that
saw
okay?
heads nod. Yep.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Okay, next is item 7B, consideration for adoption of a resolution for the Board of Education of Canyon School District, Utah, authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 70 million principal amount of its refunding bonds, Series 2022 and related matters. This is a second reading with action requested. And with all of that, Mr. Leon Wilcox had time to get to the podium, so I'll turn time over to him.
Thank you, President Tingy. Dr. Robbins mentioned the Wild West. Well, that's what it is when you talk bond refunding, just the same. Last meeting a couple of weeks ago, we talked about refunding bonds just a quick update that we issued way back 10 years ago in August 2012. From that 2010 election, we'd refund nearly 65 million by issuing about a little over 56 million there. The big thing we'd like to do is reduce the time repayment from 10 years down to 7 years. We don't know the exact savings until we go out to the sell date, but we're looking at around $9.2 to $9.4 million. And by not doing this, on board docs is the parameters resolution. And also as with last meeting, there's a memo from Stifel detailing the resolution. And then we also put out there our preliminary official statement on board docs. This is what the bidders see when they bid on our bonds. That'd be Morgan Stanley, JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, the big investment banks who bid on these bonds. That's the statement they see. I also may want to say, I believe Matt Dugdale may be on the line. He's our financial advisor from Stifel. Are you there, Matt, by chance?
Yes, I'm here, Leon. Good evening.
He is there. A voice from above. Welcome, Matt. I'll turn some time over here in just a brief minute at the end here. There's our summary of our bonds. We have about $458 million now. We issue some, but refund, defeat some, or take them off our books, and the principal payment at the end in June of that amount. Lots of numbers there. I don't want to spend a lot of time there, but that orange color is the ones that we'll look to refund. I like to always look at it in a graphic sense. The red on this year is the Jordan debt that will be going off our books. Like, we cannot say that enough. And we'll continue to say that. The blue is from the 2000, and you can see the orange is the 2017. Again, trying to push as much as we can forward to save on interest, what costs there, similar to going from, say, a 30-year home mortgage down to a 20 or 15-year, that type of analogy there. Here's the schedule of events. Would again request that you approve that resolution that's on board docs tonight. We'll finalize that official statement that's also on board docs, so maybe a couple more edits there, but we think we're nearly complete with that. We will be meeting with the bond rating agencies later this week. We intend to sell those bonds in, I think, February 9th, but then we can't close until about March 17th, so a little bit of a window there. Then, as we said last time, we'll look to refund bonds issued in 2013, a year from now. So there's always we have a 10-year call period where we can't refund those, and that opens up that time period after 10 years. So we can do some a year from now, and then in 2 years from now, we can do another bunch that we issued in 2015. There is a possible board motion. With that, Matt, is there anything you'd like to say?
Leon, I think you hit on all the main information. I just want to commend you and the board for taking advantage of these refunding opportunities. These are real savings that accrue to taxpayers, and just congratulate again the board for saving millions of dollars. It's not the first time this has happened, so thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Interest rates still really low, down there, that all-time low, but we do know they're going to likely increase here later this year. So we'd like to get on the market while we still can. So with that, I'll answer any questions or motion or whatever you'd like to do.
Questions, board? No. I just had one question. So is the savings, anticipated savings, because we're reducing from the 10 years to the 7 years,
Yeah.
and not necessarily banking on a significantly lower interest rate? Or is it both?
It's both.
It's both.
The interest rate we have right now is roughly on these bonds in that 3% range. Matt could correct me if I'm wrong. We hope to refund these, get about a 1 1/4-ish.
Oh, okay.
Right.
That's significant.
Then we'll also, as I said,
Yes.
we'll taking 64 off. We're putting 56 on the books, but taking 64 off. And so that's
Mhm.
the big savings there as well.
Yeah. That's great. Mr. Millerberg?
Then the reduction is 100% interest because the principal amount of the note does not decrease. So the only place it comes from is
Yeah.
interest.
Interest, yeah.
And
Yeah,
interest
kind By
decrease.
making
interest rates
accelerated,
decrease.
right,
So-
accelerated payments. Yeah.
That's all.
Okay. Well, board, this is listed as action requested, so a motion would be in order.
Okay, I can make a motion. So I move that we approve the bond resolution on board docs authorizing the issuance and sale of not more than 70 million aggregate principal amount of refunding bonds, series 2022 and related matters.
Thank you. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll give a second.
Thank you. Any discussion to this motion? Seeing none, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that motion passes. Thank you. And I guess I should have said this in discussion to the motion. Mrs. Nybauer did indicate to me that she was in favor of this refunding. So, okay. And thank you, Matt, for joining us and for your assistance and advice in these matters.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, item 7C, proposal for adoption of new district-wide instructional materials. This is the third reading with action requested. I will turn the time over to Dr. Amber Roderick Landward, ISD Director.
Thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight for our third reading for the annual curriculum adoption proposal. And I don't want to jinx this, but I want to commend you all because it is only 8:30 and I'm standing at the podium. So I think that we're winning
We have
tonight.
an hour and a half to grill you.
That's what I should. I don't want to jinx this, but I do want to. There was a lot of heavy things to talk about, and I'm just appreciative that it's still at a great hour for us to talk about some more things. So tonight we are here for the third reading for the annual curriculum adoption proposal. Just a reminder that we have 3 proposals before you, one for high school chemistry, one for high school physics, and then another for elementary English language arts. So for tonight's reading, I have brought back some requested data that was asked for during the second reading, and we'll go through that. And then I will also share the feedback that has been submitted to this point and address any additional questions that you may have. So with that, let's jump in to the data, and what you are looking at here is a comparison, not really even a comparison, I should say, but a number of districts who have been implementing Wonders for a couple of years. So while there are more than these districts are larger and closer to Canyon's size. One of the things to keep in mind in looking at this data is each of the districts is not implementing with the same addition of Wonders that we will be, that we're proposing to adopt. So there's a 2013, a 2017, and a 2020, and then what we are proposing is a 2023 addition. So keeping that in mind in terms of comparing what we're moving forward with and what the other districts have been doing. We also don't know when these districts began implementation, nor what their expectations around implementation has been over the years that they've been implementing. So what you see here are their trends in RISE data in the aggregate for 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade in English language arts since 2017. And also a reminder that our implementation plan includes supplanting a big portion of Wonders curriculum with the 95 core phonics, which again, to our knowledge, none of these districts are doing that. So it's interesting to look at how they've been faring, but also not necessarily the best comparison to what our plans are. Are there any questions about this data before?
Mrs. Oaks?
Sorry, I can't, I'm looking at this and I'm just wondering, where would Canyons come out on this graph? I know you knew that was going to be asked.
Very good question. And so again, because we're not comparing achievement necessarily from district to district, but their trends over time with what we are perceiving their implementation to be. Currently, though, I did anticipate that this would come up. And I was telling President Tingy that I debated back and forth about whether or not to include our line in this data. So since you asked, I will share in 2017, our aggregate data was 58% of our students meeting proficiency benchmarks on the RISE data. 2018 was 57%, 2019 was 59%, and then in 2021, it was 51%. So we saw similar trends in terms of a little bit of stagnation and then a dip, but overall our performance has maintained higher levels than some of our neighboring districts.
Just a quick question. I look at your graph up there and every line started down before the COVID-19 box. Is that box in the wrong place or what was happening?
So we did not assess our students with RISE during 2020. So we do have that gap of not having data for one full year of instruction. Does that help answer that?
So when it was evaluated was before COVID, the next one was in the middle of COVID, and so you just connected the dots.
Correct.
And so the scores did not necessarily start going down before COVID hit. But that's what your graph looks like.
Depending on the district, right? And I think, again, you know, the important data to keep in mind would be the data that I shared during the first and second reading, which was the state of affairs in canyons and how we are faring right now with regards to reading and those long-term impacts that we're seeing all the way through secondary when we don't have the tools that we need to really support our students at the elementary level. So I think those are the biggest indicators of identifying the needs as we look at programs moving forward. Are there questions about these data?
Other questions? Nope. Go ahead and continue.
Okay, so the exciting part, of course, is let's talk about the feedback that we have been receiving since our first reading, which, if you'll recall, was way back in December 14th or somewhere around there. And so from that time to now, our stakeholders, both our families and our employees, have had the opportunity to access the materials either digitally through our access codes that have been shared with them, or they could access the print materials at the school level or here at the district office. Parents and stakeholders, families and teachers received notification about this in various ways. Of course, through board meetings and board docs, the information is always available, but there have been many blasts through the general news, through our webpage and social media, both at the school and district levels, additional and specific flyers with information about how to access those materials, newsletters, as well as, I know it has been brought up in a number of SCC and PTA meetings that have been held since that time. So there have been a number of ways that folks have been able to be informed that this is going on. Always something that we strive to work on in terms of getting the word out there. Through the feedback process, we have said from the get-go that stakeholders can submit feedback formally through our digital form or any channel, and we would be taking all of that information in. So the formally submitted feedback through our Google form, there were 6 stakeholders that submitted feedback. They were all related to elementary English language arts. So there were not any stakeholders who submitted feedback about physics or chemistry through this channel. In that formally submitted feedback, nearly all of the comments about Wonders and 95 Core Phonics were positive, and you have a handout that has those exact comments from those particular stakeholders. It's also on board docs. So you can also see from those particular questions that there was one stakeholder who had specific questions about professional learning for teachers. And so I thought I would take a minute to just address those right now, if that's okay. So with regards to the professional learning, I'll start with ELA, since this particular patron had reviewed that curriculum in depth. I mentioned in the first reading that one of the things that when we met with our curriculum adoption committee for elementary ELA and started to solicit their ideas about what professional learning needed to look like in order to support them with this big implementation, one of the most common things that we heard was we really need a lot of choice. We've had so many things going on this year, particularly at the elementary level. We want some choice in how we learn about this new program, how we engage with it, and how we come to develop the competencies that we know are necessary. So that is something that we are working on designing right now, both with our principals, coaches, and we'll continue to do so with our teachers. So our teachers will have the opportunity to review all of the competencies that they'll need to be able to be successful over the next couple of years with these programs. And then we will give them a menu of options of how they can gain those competencies. So those options will be available in person, they'll be available virtually, they'll be available independently, they'll be available collaboratively. And all of the nuances of those will be worked out with the curriculum adoption committee and principals, since they'll give us the most insight into whether or not what we're designing will actually be will actually work and meet their needs. But we really wanted to take to heart what they were requesting by organizing that choice. So that would be the initial training. We then would support our teachers ongoing with opportunities to engage with our curriculum specialists on a regular basis. We've done this in the past with kind of office hours and consultation that are really led by the teacher's needs. So that would be one opportunity. We'll also have opportunities for them to attend regular, what we call bite-sized PD, where they can engage virtually, but it is live, or they can watch those sessions at a later date. And those are more snippets of just quick components that will give them some information, and they can have that to access in the future. And then, of course, through our school-based coaches, they'll have the opportunity to engage with support regularly. And then, of course, the responsive professional learning that any of our principals can request for their schools and teams will be available as well. So that's the model that we're looking at for elementary English language arts. For chemistry and physics, it's a much smaller group of teachers, remember, and they've been involved for the last year in looking through all of these curricula and have since been able to spend a pretty significant amount of time looking at the proposed curricula. So they have requested one collaborative day to be able to work together and gain some more knowledge about the specific components of the curriculum, and then to work through their curriculum maps with our curriculum specialists and their coaches. Because again, this is a high school implementation, I'll just throw out there that they do not at this time have a late start similar to our middle schools or an early out like our elementaries, who have that collaborative opportunity already built in. So we are looking at how we can provide ongoing supports for them to collaborate, particularly since there are only a few of these teachers at each school. So having a bigger network to be able to collaborate and learn as they implement will be critical for them. Any other questions about professional learning? Okay. The same parent also had a few questions about parent training, which I thought was a really great question, and something that we really want to make sure that we do. What's the right word? Do better. When we know better, we do better. But it's something that I think has come up particularly over the years, but the excitement around parents around wanting to be involved in the materials that their students are using and how they can best support their students at home. And so we've been brainstorming a lot of ideas about how we can engage with our parent community and support them with understanding the nuances that they would need to know to be able to support their students with these curriculum components as their students move towards mastery of the standards. So that's something that I would say is still in development, and I'd love to bring back to y'all when we have some of those ideas further fleshed out. But right now we are looking primarily at that teacher learning. And then finally, you saw in the comments that there was an initiation made by a parent of a student in our community who is blind. And so wanting to, again, connect us with the right resources to be able to plan and anticipate the needs of that particular child and how we can support them with this curricula. So very exciting collaboration already happening in that regard. So that was the formal feedback that was submitted. And then, as I mentioned, we try to look at all channels and where folks may have submitted or even just informally shared ideas. So we reached out to all of our principals as well as the CEA leadership to check in to see what they've been hearing, any feedback that they have for us. And very few principals reported that parents were seeking information and that they were sharing feedback directly with the principals. In fact, most reported that they didn't have any parents come and ask to see any of the materials. And we only had 2 requests here at the district office for the materials. And then both CEA and the principals reported that the feedback from teachers was positive in all 3 of the proposals. Of course, reiterated some of the concerns of teachers, not so much about the proposals, but just what is the training going to look like? Are we going to have choice? Is this going to be one more thing that we're going to have to try to fit in with letters? So all of those things that, again, we're trying to keep in mind as we build that implementation plan. But overall, the feedback has been very positive in terms of these particular curricula meeting their students' needs and excitement around new materials, not necessarily excitement about the magnitude and the timing, of course, which is like anything right now. So we'll take it though. Any other questions I can address either about the feedback that I just shared with you or otherwise?
Questions, board? Mr. Millerberg.
As I look at your final bullet point there, it reads most reported positive feedback from teachers. To me, most means greater than 50%.
Yes. That's how I'm interpreting it. But again,
I mean, most could be 95% too. I don't know. Could you tell me, with most of it being positive, what negative comments did you receive?
you saw the one comment that was submitted formally where there was a question around implementation of the 95 core phonics. And to be honest, I think that was perhaps a miscommunication on our end or how it trickled down into that particular stakeholder's information. And so that I would even say is maybe neutral because we weren't talking about the same program. Other feedback, I haven't heard from any principal or teacher that has outright said, there is no way we should adopt this program. It is not good for kids. It is not going to help me teach. Any what you could call less than positive feedback would just be the trepidation of implementing anything this size, right? It's not easy, and they know it's not going to be easy, and they're in the middle of a pandemic. And the pandemic has not stopped life from happening. So in addition to COVID, we have teachers who are dealing with additional family trauma, death, other things that have nothing to do with the pandemic, and showing up every day to a lot of students who are gone and teachers and colleagues who are gone from the building. So they've got a lot going on. So
what you're telling me, Amber, is that it is not negative towards the program at all. It's more negative that's an additional burden you're placing on us at this time.
Absolutely. Okay. And I think that we can all understand why they might be feeling that way. And again, they're working really hard to maintain. And again, that data, even though we weren't comparing achievement, I think we do owe our teachers a big shout out, because despite having remote learning Fridays last year, we still maintained higher than the state average in most of our neighboring districts in the majority of our testing. So our teachers are doing incredible things, and I know that they will continue to do incredible things with even better materials to be able to support our students.
Mrs. Schill and then Mr. Wrigley.
So how does this training or how does this curriculum line up with letters?
Really good question. So one of the main reasons we chose to supplant the Wonders foundational skills was because of the training that our teachers are getting in letters. So they've got so much more extensive training in those foundational components of reading related to phonemic awareness, phonics and spelling, that the Wonders phonics program didn't follow the scope and sequence and the depth of science, the science of reading, the way 95 core phonics does. So that particular program is pretty much lockstep with what they've been learning in letters, which is also why they won't need as much professional development in that particular program, because they've been getting it all year and will continue to get that next year.
Okay, so it lines up with the 95 phonics, yes, not necessarily Wonders.
Correct.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, I guess Mr. Wrigley didn't have a question, but I do have a question or comment from Mrs. Neibauer that she wanted to know, because there's an online component to these curricula, that what type of a practice is there in place, or could we put one in place so that when changes, because it's an online or dynamic type of a curriculum, that when changes are made by the publisher, is your department made aware of it, and what type of vetting do those changes receive? And then maybe talk about some plans to update the board upon receipt of some of those changes.
Really good question. And in most of our experience with large publishers, they do make us aware when there are changes. And I may have mentioned this, I can't remember if I mentioned it to the whole board or if in just individual questions over the last couple of months. When those updates occur, they're typically really minor, similar to when you get an update on your phone or your iPad or your computer. They're working out some of the bugs that the users have identified. So whether that's a typo, whether that's a system that's not working as quickly within the digital platform, but it's very rarely content. So they're not going to change a text set within the curriculum and have that be just a routine update, because again, they've got copyright, they've got a publication edition, and if they were making many changes, then that would warrant a new edition and potentially more money from us as customers, right? So we can certainly make you aware when we get those updates, notifications, and what those updates will be, so that again, we can just be in the habit of being transparent so that everybody knows when those occur. We're a little less familiar because we're entering a new relationship on the ELA side with this publisher. Even though we've adopted with McGraw-Hill in the past, every program and group of authors and their teams working on the programs are different from program to program. So I'll find out the specific schedule and what those notifications look like and make sure that we are informed.
Is it usually an annual thing or just
really
kind of as they
depends.
happen? And okay.
We've experienced annual, we've experienced regularly scheduled, that their team already has it planned out for the year. And then we've also experienced some spontaneous updates. Again, I think it is dependent upon the users and what feedback they're getting and what needs to change most rapidly.
Great, thank you. Other questions or comments? Mrs. Oakes.
I just want to give you a shout out for trying to navigate this in a very difficult time and environment. And I've actually really been pleasantly surprised by what I've read in these books. I think it's great. I'm really excited for our kids to have access to this content. And I think that the stories are fantastic. Like when I was reading today in the first grade curriculum, it included stories about Thomas Edison, the Wright brothers, focus on curiosity, problem solving. There's so many positive things in here.
There are.
And anyway, I just really look forward to seeing what my elementary age child comes home with next year. I think it's going to be great.
Both.
Yeah.
I'm excited as well, Amanda, and I appreciate those statements. One of the things that I just will throw out there, because I'm sure that this is a question that might come up next, is what are the next steps should the board take action and approve this program tonight? And the first would be that we'll be presenting you in 2 weeks with a requisition to actually purchase this large purchase for all of these will be listed in your requisition for consent agenda. And then we will immediately get working on the instructional guides. And that is something that I think is also important to point out, especially when you're looking at other districts' data. We do accompany every curriculum that we adopt, and to support all of our particularly core courses with instructional guides that highlight specifically how to utilize these materials to be able to teach those standards, which allows us the opportunity to go even deeper with those materials. I know that that's been a concern of a group of parents in terms of really looking in depth at what this program has to offer. We get to read and reread and really think about what that looks like in the classroom, make sure it's mapped appropriately, and what components we're really prioritizing for our implementation expectations. And then that becomes the basis of our professional learning over the next 6 months before the new school year starts.
Thank you, Mrs. Oakes.
So I just have one more question. Well, it's kind of bifurcated, but the first is, I know that this program comes in a lot of languages. And I'm curious with the DLI program, whether or not you're going to be purchasing accompanying workbooks in the target language, whether it's French, Spanish, or Chinese, and to be able to work with those teachers together to be able to reinforce the learning. That's one thing, because I do think it's a phenomenal opportunity to expand a child's language ability. And the second is, can we please make sure that these teachers have permission to do arts integration with this curriculum, because it is set up perfectly for it.
It really is. Yes, that they don't need permission. That is something that we we encourage them to do, and we hope that we can even provide some more explicit supports because again, their time is limited. And so it's something that we've been talking a lot about as an elementary team, where all those integration components really tie so nicely. And again, hopefully help our elementary teachers with doing a very difficult job with all the subjects that they're required to teach. With regard to dual immersion, so the program Wonders itself doesn't come in a lot of language. The communications home are in a lot of languages to be able to support our families. And dual immersion being a state program, that curriculum is directed by the state. And so we will not be adopting Wonders for DLI. However, the state, because so many districts have been using Wonders, have already organized what they call a crosswalk to be able to support that reinforcement of language in all of the target languages. And so they're already looking at what that looks like for the 2023 edition, should that be what we decide to move forward with. And hopefully, again, won't require a whole lot of tweaking on their end to be able to then support our teachers with this program as well.
That's actually incredibly exciting. I'm totally nerdy, but I think it's awesome. Just out of curiosity, I guess I haven't paid close enough attention. Is this something that may be used at the sixth grade level, or is it exclusively K through 5?
So right now, the proposal is K-5, and as we continue to examine some of the changes that will be made to the ELA standards for secondary, we will, of course, look at what materials they have access to and what materials they might need. So I wouldn't rule anything out, but at this time, we do not have plans to bring a comprehensive adoption for sixth grade.
Because I do think, in my mind, and this has come up in our former DLI committee, once you get to the middle school, particularly sixth grade, seventh grade, I mean, like that's where DLI really struggles more. I think that we have the model down beautifully, K through, 1 through 5, but
I just talking about for dual immersion.
For dual immersion,
I
sorry.
We're talking about for ELA.
Sorry, no, and let me clarify that. I mean,
Gotcha.
and part of it is because of the way that the schedule is, and it changes from it being truly a dual day, right? And so there's a number of factors, but I'm just curious if we see that really benefiting
It's a really good
things and the first through fifth grade level, whether or not it would be worth considering how to be able to have those complementary pieces, maybe in middle school as well. So.
I think it's always worth exploring. I think it's a really good point to keep on our radar.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Wrigley.
Just really quickly, there may be some people asking, why are we spending this money? I think one of our first meetings months ago on this, the current version that we're having, we're holding together with masking tape and duct tape. And we can no longer do that as far as losing the license. So we're at a point we have to move forward with this. That's why we're putting all this on our teachers during a crazy time. It's not, let's add on top of on COVID. Its time is up. We can no longer do it. The other thing I understood is it got to a point where we were almost copying everything off and having all these papers and all the extra help.
We've been supplementing a lot.
So I mean, it was just a whole bunch of extra work. And so when you send it home, it may look like it was busy work and sort of outdated. And I'm hoping with the new version that we're going into, first off, we won't have to probably save millions of dollars on paper and copy things off. But more than that, is we do a lot more virtual time if we have to. This may be a good thing that they could actually learn at home using the software. In some of the kids, if we can get computers to kids in elementary, but that would then give them something really solid to work on. That's a good solid program. Even the teacher could supplement, but then for the rest of the day do. So I'm hoping that it's going to move us in that direction we need to as we do more. We talk about virtual and making virtual a very beneficial day. This may add to that.
Absolutely. And I'm really glad that you brought that up. One of the bonuses of this program was its total integration into Canvas that is very easy for our teachers to be able to do, because again, that is something that is still used less frequently in the elementary than at the middle and high schools. So that that is a huge, to make it easier for an elementary teacher who again is teaching all of the content areas, not just ELA, becomes a big win, anything that can save them time. The components of the digital platform outside of Canvas are also very user-friendly to the students and the parents who would be supporting them, and also support teacher planning in a way that is like nothing, honestly, that we've seen before on a digital platform. So we've been very impressed with how easily a teacher can organize his or her week, send full transparent communication to families about what he or she has planned for the week, and how they can access those particular stories, lessons, and student tools that they may be using during class time so they can reinforce that at home if they need to.
Yeah, hopefully this will offset some of the time it takes to learn by using the time that they wasted in the previous program doing paper and copying and all the other stuff that they had to do. So I'm glad to see us moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, board. Any other comments or questions? Yes, I just want to just take a minute though and also express my appreciation to you and the team. I know, I mean, this isn't just something that you got an idea a few months ago when you brought it to us. It represents a tremendous amount of work over many, many months, over a year, I'm sure, at this point. So appreciate all of your efforts and your willingness to be transparent and provide us all the information that we've asked for, and with the help of communications to seek the feedback from the public. And I just really feel like this process for regular curriculum adoption it's a really good process, but it's not an easy or a quick process either. So thank you.
I will pass that along to the committees as well, because
Please
again,
do.
the teachers gave a lot of time to ensuring that we were supporting them and their students simultaneously with this process.
Yes, please do. Thank you. Okay, yes, motion would be in order.
Okay, I'll make a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the item 7C, the proposal for adoption of new district-wide instructional curriculum material as listed in the agenda for elementary, ELA, chemistry, and what was the other one?
Physics.
And civics.
Thank you for the motion. Does that cover everything? Okay. And is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it.
Thank you. Any discussion to the motion? I will also just mention that Mrs. Neibauer wanted it known that she is supportive of these adoptions. So with that, I will call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion passes, Cindy. And just for clarification, I mentioned that she was in favor, but that's not casting a vote. Right. Okay, thank you. All right, board, that concludes our business for this evening. We'll now take a minute and hear some comments from Superintendent Robbins and then Business Administrator Leon Wilcox.
Thank you, President. Also just want to express my appreciation to Amber and her team, Susan Henry, Kenna, Jesse, her entire team, just the work and effort, and all the teachers and staff that served on the committee. Just a job well done. And I want to publicly express my confidence in Wonders and the tremendous commitment to literacy in the district. As I've been here and talked to Amber and just kind of observed and reflected on the literacy wars that have taken place in our state and our country over the years, Canyons has a lot to be proud of. And it's not by chance that Canyons continues to be a leader in literacy. Yes, we have our gaps and our issues to address, but to continue to see that commitment level and dedication and growth is a real tribute to our teachers and our staff and our leadership team. So I just want Amber to know how much I appreciate her. And secondly, just to wrap up the COVID comments, I too just want to express my humble gratitude to all of our employees, our staff, our parents, our students. I've said this before, neither are the enemy, we're the union. We're together on this. As you mentioned, President, I appreciate the board's confidence in going forward and continue to do the best that we can in the middle of a crisis, and recognizing that everyone is carrying a lot on their plate, and it's not easy. But as I've said before, I hope our students will someday look back on this time with a lot of gratitude for all the sacrifices that have been made for them. And if that's what we get accomplished, then we've really, fulfilled our purpose in being here. So I appreciate all of you as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox.
Yes, thank you, President Tingy. Last week I guess it's been a little over a week ago at the USBA Saturday session, we had the Iron Cowboy, James Lawrence, who had done so many triathlons, 50 and 50 days. And then you saw how his feet looked and how his body looked at the end of doing that. It's a little bit how we felt at the end of last week. I just appreciate all our bus drivers who had to do extra routes, or our teachers who had to do extra subbing, all our substitutes who did come in, our parent volunteers, our students who were working with us, and everybody who made us through that last week. It was quite a challenge. And as we get going tomorrow and a new week ahead, we just hope everybody, as Dr. Robbins says, has patience with us. We all are together with this. We're excited to be back in person tomorrow. My wife texted me today and she says, "You're not going to change your mind. Our boys are going to school tomorrow." Because, kind of maybe a little rough day of homeschooling. And I go, absolutely. So with that, we're excited we just hope everybody will support us over the next 2 weeks as we're going up this Omicron spike. And finally, just as mentioned, USBA, I just want to congratulate Amber. Tremendous conference last week. Great job as the outgoing president of USBA in 2021. So she'll be the past president this 2022, but great job last week and a very successful conference. So thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Okay, for board member comments, we'll start at this end and I will read a comment from Mrs. Neibauer. I want to extend a big thank you to our teachers. Thank you for working diligently throughout the shortages of staff out sick. Thank you for the extra efforts to help students who are out sick. Thank you for taking extra classrooms. Thank you for all the staff here at the central office, for subbing in for bus drivers and nutritional services and classrooms. And lastly, thank you, parents and students. Again, we find ourselves in a frustrating situation. Thank you to the students for still showing up online or at school. I know canceled activities is extremely disappointed. At the same time, I'm grateful for our superintendent studying the numbers and consulting with Dr. Webb and the health department. I'm grateful he's willing to take this 1 week at a time so that students' lives will not be more disrupted than necessary. The Associated Press reports there are more worrisome variants on the horizon. I hope we can continue to strive for creative solutions, promoting hand washing, staying at home if you're sick, and find an exit strategy to COVID dashboards and canceling school. I know this is a part of our future. I look forward with positivity as we harness the resilience of the students we serve. I had the opportunity to meet briefly with our Student Advisory Council this past week. What a pleasure. You are remarkable. Thank you. That's from Holly Neibauer. Okay, Mr. Wrigley.
Okay, yeah, I had the opportunity to attend our student council meeting, and what great kids. We have such great conversations. I mean, really adult conversations when we ask them about what was troubling them, and it really is beneficial. I also have, most of the time in my time on the board, I do my drop-ins to the school and say hi and wave and, sort of whatever, got the wave done. This last week, because we were so short-staffed, I had the opportunity to go in and teach for 2 days at Indian Hills and also at Union. It was what a wonderful experience that was in many ways. First off, in many of the schools as I went in, I found that when I went in the morning, they were down 2 or 3 staff that called in late, that sick that day. Teachers immediately picked up that slot and gave up their time, their prep periods to go and fill that. We had lunch aides, we had hall monitors. It was, and despite all of that, everybody was in good spirits. Everybody was there, and they all just pitched in like a family. It was really interesting. Of all the different classes I got to teach last week, I substitute teach at a couple of the districts. It's always interesting. You'll have 6 or 7 classes. There's always 1 or 2 where you thought you died and went to heaven. You're going, these kids are so quiet and they're on task. And there's always one during the day that they're crazy. And I don't know what it is. The same thing. But it was really sort of interesting. But all of the classes I went, the kids were in good spirits. The kids wanted to be there. And it was almost like, despite wearing masks and everything, and most of the kids were wearing masks last week, but despite that, it was like COVID wasn't, they just went on with life. And it was just sort of interesting and exciting to see that. And as I had an opportunity to talk to teachers are so positive, so supportive of one another. So with both times, it was a good opportunity just to see what is going on in the district, to have an opportunity to rub shoulders with our great and fantastic staff at all throughout the schools. And so I just want to say thank you for what you're doing. Parents often say, well, we appreciate our doctors and nurses and that. You ought to have 25, 30 kids in a classroom. Talk about, it's more danger doing that than it is in one person in the clinic coming in and seeing you. So they are there on the lines. I also want to thank our parents. It's just been a very trying time. I know it's been very difficult on our parents. I just want to say thank you for their patience, and remember, this is moving together. It's a tribe, and all of us need to work together in this process. Parents often say to us, we want to have control of our children, so, education. And I'm saying to them, please, we need your help. We need your help right now desperately. We need you to be that partner so we can overcome and move through this process that we've done. So if any way we can work with parents better, let us know. And know that we make some crazy decisions, but they're all data-driven. They're all based upon a whole bunch of things that we don't have time a lot of times in our meeting to do and tell you. But this is not made on a whim, or it's not made politically. It's based upon the children and what we feel is best for the children and their safety. That's the basic foundation of everything we do in this district.
Thank you. Mrs. Oakes?
Okay, since our last regular board meeting, I've had the opportunity to be able to attend some awesome events put on by PTSAs. Namely, Corner Canyon does an annual elected officials breakfast. And they also put on the Battle of the Bands just a few days before that. And that was a riot. It was so much fun. I couldn't stop smiling the whole time. And those kids, what I found was amazing. They did kind of an open mic where kids could get up and solo. And they were so supportive of each other. And it was so reaffirming for the kids that were performing. I don't know. I found it to be really joyful experience. And I was so grateful for those parents that put so much time and effort into organizing those events. It's not a small effort. It's a lot of work. I also got to attend the USBA conference, which you guys did a bang up job, especially in light of everything going on. I learned a lot, and it was wonderful to be able to see fellow board members from other districts and have a sense of solidarity, because all of us are going through a lot together. I also got to attend the Arts Consortium meeting along with Nancy, and that was awesome. You may remember that we recently put out a survey to all the secondary, high school and middle school students about their arts experience, what motivates them to take certain classes, or, if there are obstacles, what those are. how they feel about their arts classes. And they're still in the middle of aggregating and solidifying and clarifying some of that data. But what we saw initially was awesome. And it was really exciting. And more than anything, I was not surprised by this, but it was so fun to see the student-specific comments about what a positive impact their arts classes have on their social and emotional well-being. That it's the highlight of their day, that it's a place where they can go and quiet their mind, or they can express their creativity, or they can express their emotions. And it was really fun. So I'm excited to dig in a little deeper and to kind of consider that survey as we go into strategic planning as a group. And lastly, I just want to echo, similar to what Steve was sharing. I've been reflecting a bit about moments of quiet heroism. Sometimes the biggest heroes in this world are ones you never hear about. You never know what they're doing behind the scenes to benefit the lives of a lot of other people. I feel like our teachers definitely fit in that category. I feel like our lunch workers, our bus drivers, our ESPs, like there are so many people that behind the scenes, in the face of really difficult circumstances or not feeling well, are really trying to make a difference for kids. And I recognize my kids are the beneficiaries of that effort. A lot of them are parents too. You know, when I think about the PTSA or any parent that has been willing to step into the classroom and substitute, I know there are many. There's a friend from one of my former neighborhoods that my kids say that they see her on a regular basis in the middle school. She doesn't have to do that, but she does it because she knows there's a need. I am so grateful for all of the people in the face of this pandemic. I know we can get really loud and really complaining about certain things, but I often think that if we saw what everyone is dealing with behind the scenes and the efforts that they're making, that we would treat each other with more kindness and patience. And so I just want to reemphasize that as we move forward through whatever this current surge has to offer, that we'll remember that there are things that people are doing quietly behind the scenes that are heroic in nature, and we just don't see them. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Mrs. Schill.
Thank you. So I was able to attend the Student Advisory Council as well, and it was my first meeting, and I was really impressed with these kids. We asked them a lot of questions, and I loved how really each one of them wanted to answer the question, even if we did it on Zoom, and even if they're in a room with like 4 people, each one of them wanted to say something. And I just thought it was really great. They were really engaged, and they were really smart and just awesome. So I love that. I just want to thank all of you guys for attending the USBA conference and supporting me. I really enjoyed it. It was really great. And I just appreciate all of you and your support. We also had, no one's mentioned it yet, the pre-legislative luncheon with our legislators. I think all of us were there pretty much. And that was really great. I just want to thank our legislators that today was the first day, and it's a lot. It's very intense and a lot of work, and I just appreciate them and their willingness to serve. I also just want to add my thanks, like everyone else, to teachers and the ESPs. I mean, every single person in this district is doing their best for kids. And we're just in a really hard time. And I just hope people know that we're just trying to make the best decisions we can. And we really are thinking about everyone, not just students. We're thinking about the teachers and just trying to do our best. But I really do appreciate them. And I know it's hard. I mean, we understand that. We know it's hard, but we do appreciate it. And I know they're not doing it for us. They're doing it for kids. And I recognize that. And I want to thank them.
Thank you. Mr. Millerberg.
I could probably just say what they said and be done. But I've got just a couple of other things that I will add to that. Amber, you've already been complimented a couple of times about the USBA convention, and I would say that is well deserved. That was an excellent program. I sat in there Friday night during the entertainment, and I looked around the room that was full of board members from statewide and some spouses. and I just had a thought that these are just absolutely good people. I don't know that I've ever been associated with a group of people before that I just felt like were good people. Also, as part of that, the directors and the officers of the USBA were able to sit down with the state school board and have dinner. And that was I felt like a remarkable experience to be able to sit down with and build a relationship there. One thing that to me stood out is every meeting we have here, Jeff, you get up and tell everybody what a great job they're doing and how wonderful everything is. I think it would be a sad day if we didn't recognize Jeff. And he was a presenter at the conference and presented Saturday morning. And afterwards, I said to Jeff, and I meant this as a compliment, and I believe he took it as such, he does not just go in and present, he performs. It was an excellent presentation and great information. And I believe that people from other school districts in the state were able to benefit from knowing what you've been able to do to make us look good. Not the others, but I know sometimes I make that a hard job for you. Another thing that maybe culminated as part of the USBA convention, but it's been a bunch of hard work throughout the year to get us there. According to my understanding, and correct me if I am wrong, Canyons School District Board of Education received the Master Board Award, and all 7 board members and both of our administrators earned the individual portion of that. I think that's the first time we've had 100% in Canyon School District. The thing that is really cool about this Master Board Award is it shows that we take our job seriously, that we are willing to put forth the effort and receive the training to be competent at what we're doing. And so I would like to extend congratulations to the entire board and to Rick and Leon for everybody earning that. That is a big deal. Last thing that I want to mention, and Jeff, you mentioned this tonight in your presentation, is Mindy Robinson, principal at Midvale Middle School. I think part of what makes a leader great is their ability to assemble a group of people with a common vision. And I found that morning that I went down to Midvale Middle School for that presentation and would chat with a few of the faculty members. That is a group of people that are willing to do the heavy lifting because they know that they can make a difference in a child's life, in a student's life. And I compliment Mindy for being the leader with that vision to make a difference. And I can't think of anybody more deserving than she was to receive Principal of the Year. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to take a minute and also express my appreciation. Like Mont said, I could just say ditto to what everyone has said, and in regards to all the different activities that have gone on. But I'll just mention one thing. I was able to attend the Utah Economic Outlook Summit from Salt Lake Chamber of Commerce last week. And it was very interesting. Lots and lots of experts talking about and touting how wonderful Utah is and what a great job we've done through all of this pandemic and just continuing on the great work in managing the state and in the business community of Utah. And it was nice to be able to celebrate and receive information that's so positive about Utah. And they did talk about education a little bit, but one of the pieces that in my mind seemed a little bit of a disconnect is they were talking about now is the time to invest in the infrastructure. And you may have seen this in news articles, and it was part of the opening day of the legislative session remarks by the president of the Senate and the Speaker of the House about investing, using some of our the state's tax revenues to invest in like water infrastructure and efforts to be more efficient with that. And I guess the piece in my mind that was a little bit of a disconnect, and maybe it's just me, it only made sense to connect it for me, but I truly believe that public education is part of the infrastructure of the state of Utah, and the quality of education that is provided to students throughout the state is such high caliber that it really is a big contributor to the rosy economic outlook that Utah has. And I just truly believe that it is part of our future, and I think it is worthy of investment similar to infrastructure investment. So anyway, that's just kind of some thoughts that I had, and I just appreciate my fellow board members as well as all the educators throughout the district, because I feel like they also see how valuable and how critically important it is that we have high quality education in every classroom throughout the district. And so with those thoughts, if there's nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting, and it looks like we're about 30 seconds shy of 9:30. So thank you all.